obviously he was a very popular man during his lifetime, and still alive, of course.
Well, he is still alive.
Yeah.
After-hours football debate for poachers, private eyes...
Could I ask you something personal?
...and pole dancers.
I'm not in market for business, love.
Mike Graham's been all three at some point in his career.
Oh, really, you great big sweaty bush idiot?
And I'll tell you what, you were a better pole dancer than presenter, I can tell you that.
The Two Mikes on Talk Sport.
We went to Penzance because we thought we'd see some pirates, and then it was a dump. Absolute pit.
Went to Penzance to see if there were any pirates there.
Yeah.
What a plank. Now,
most people in Hampstead are on LSD, aren't they, and all this kind of stuff.
Well, that's where I grew up.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's
what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Bearded weirdo. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Well, it's not such a good morning, Mike.
Why do you mean that?
Well, a few hours ago, my back clicked out.
What?
Now, you know you get back problems.
Well, you looked all right when you came in.
Well, I was struggling about getting up the steps and all that kind of stuff outside, and getting out of my two-door sports 3.5 litre fastback Merc.
Fastback Mercedes. Maybe it's not good for your back.
No, it's good. It's great because I've got an ergonomically designed seat.
You see, you say that, but
and
it may
the ergonomic
well be.
design is supposed to keep my back in place.
But
it's not that.
But it's not doing it. Therefore, maybe there's something wrong with the car.
No.
Maybe you'll have to get a car more befitting your a sort of splendid number of years.
Yeah. No,
see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sure, I understand what you're saying, but it's nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's all to do with the fact that your back can click in and out at any time.
You're not on any prescription drugs, are you?
No. Well,
you're not going to be found asleep at the wheel on the way back to Stockbroker Belt, Surrey.
You're talking about
having hit a few cars on the way back.
Tiger Woods style.
Well, I mean, apparently he's got 2 flat tyres on one side of the car.
Yes.
He's got a whole scrape down the side of the car.
Yes.
The police are saying, however, he doesn't seem to have hit anything.
No.
How do you get those then?
I don't know. I fell asleep once on a motorway.
Did you?
On the M62, coming back from a party in Yorkshire, going back to Manchester.
Really?
I lived in Sale.
It was a long time ago, I presume.
Oh, 3 decades ago. And it wasn't bladderation involved because I'd slept over there, right?
Right.
And then got up the next morning very early and decided to make it back to Sale.
Uh-huh.
But as I came across the M62, I fell asleep at the wheel.
But presumably you hadn't had enough sleep then?
Hadn't had enough sleep. And the car drifted across the 3 lanes, hit the central barrier,
Blimey.
and scraped it all the way down.
Oi.
And then
was it a company car?
It was a company car, yeah.
Right.
And then bounced off and went back over
And
the 3
were you sort
lanes.
of going up and down like on the grass and all that?
On the gravel, actually.
Yeah.
There was a gravel next to me. I woke, and as I woke up, for some unknown reason, I thought, am I in an aeroplane? Because it was heading up the green bank on the other side of the
You
motorway.
must have been well out of it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was stunned and shocked, you know, and then it spun round.
Yeah.
Fortunately, went back down onto the motorway.
Very lucky you didn't hit something.
I was extremely lucky because it was about 5 in the morning,
Right.
you know.
So it was dark.
No, it was light because
was
it was
it?
summer. It was about
Right.
6 in the morning or something
Wow.
like that. Yeah.
Luckily, there was no other cars on the road.
Well, I was very lucky indeed. Yeah, very, very lucky.
And so, what excuse did you make to the company car people?
I didn't. I held my hands up and said that.
What did you say?
I said the tyre blew out.
So you didn't hold your hands up?
Well, I did in a way. I mean,
No, you told them a lie.
No, I didn't tell them a lie.
You told them a tyre blew out when in fact it hadn't.
Well, the tyre did blow out.
Well, it did by the time you'd finished scraping
Yeah,
the
that's
car
right,
around the middle
absolutely,
of the central
yeah.
reservation.
I had to pull onto
but that didn't cause the actual accident.
I had to pull onto. How do you know? It could have done. And I had to pull onto the hard shoulder and change the wheel. But anyway, look, that's irrelevant. The thing is, my
I'm
back
really
is more
interested in
important.
the story now about how you managed to con the company car people. I don't blame you because everybody did.
Yeah.
You know, something happened to your company car. My ex-wife, right, once wrapped my company car around a pole in an underground car park at Waitrose in Swiss Cottage. And it was a Ford Mondeo, white one. And the back door, I don't know how she did it, the back door was completely smashed in.
Yeah,
you know,
terrible.
like completely sort of, like in a V shape, right?
Shocking.
And I said, how did you manage that? She said, it's a very small car park.
That's right.
And I said, well, it's not my fault. Anyway, but I couldn't tell them that's what happened.
Yeah.
So I had to tell them that, somebody had smashed into the car when it was parked on the street.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was a lie, obviously.
Well, of course.
Terrible lie. But the thing is...
But they didn't care, really.
Because I was smarter than the average bear, instead of taking the car back to the office and saying to somebody there, the transport manager, what I did was, I went straight
The car must have been a bit of a mess.
It wasn't a mess, yeah.
The windows blown out or anything.
No, they weren't. No, it was only scraped down the driver's side, all the way down the driver's side, because I'd hit the barrier, the central reservation barrier. So I, instead of going back to the office and talking to the transport manager, who's a complete...
Dolt.
Juice head, complete bonehead. I went straight to the garage where I knew the things got fixed.
Yeah.
And paid the guy £60, which was a lot of money in those days.
Well, just to sort it out.
Yeah, I said, just fix it, will you?
Yeah.
You know, and he said, well, I haven't got Form SD3 from the Express. You don't need Form SD3, just fix it.
Yeah.
I said, and just get it done, please, and all that. And then send the bill in next month, will you? And then, you know, it'll be too long for them to be able to check back on what's the problem. I said, look, so many people bash so many cars about.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Totally.
Yeah.
And
he said, all right then, but it'll cost you 100.
Yeah.
So I had to give him 100
Yeah.
quid.
I mean, having a company car was kind of tantamount to not having to be responsible in any way, shape or form for anything that happened to it.
Absolutely.
You know?
One of our guys there, the name was Graham somebody, and he fancied himself as a bit of a lawyer, and he used to make money on the side by doing people's conveyancings when they came to London and bought the first house.
Are you allowed to do that?
Yeah,
you don't have to be qualified.
No, you don't have to be. No, you don't have to be. No. Well, he fancied himself as a bit of a lawyer, and I think he might have studied law at university and then decided to go into journalism or something like that. You know, he's a very pompous fellow, but he thought he was ever so clever. He used to, because you could come down from London and buy yourself a house in those days.
Yeah.
And, come down from Manchester and buy yourself a house. You know, and he did the conveyancing. But he managed to get his car written off by stopping too quickly at a set of traffic lights in Fleet Street, and the bloke behind in a baker's van smashed into his car
right into him,
and wrote it off because he bent whatever the mainframe is or the chassis or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how sort of shallow the value of company cars were to people who worked on the Daily Express.
And of course, it all changed when the government got wise.
Yeah.
And in fact, that was when I ceased to have a company car when I was up in Scotland.
Yeah.
Because they said, right, well, what we're now going to do is going to charge you as if that is a perk in money terms.
That's right.
So that we will tax you on the whole value of the car.
That's right.
And it was ending up going to cost people sort of $5-6 grand a year in tax.
Bad news.
So they stopped it.
Bad news. But let's get back to my back, because that's the most important thing.
Yes.
Now, I've discovered that there's a new back treatment thing, and it's like, like you can have a pacemaker for your heart.
Yes.
They're going to start inventing pacemakers which they put in your back. Now, did you know that back pain is Britain's biggest cause of disability?
Yes, I did know that.
It affects 1/10 of the total population. It consumes 1.7% of the gross domestic product of this country. That's not the health budget.
No.
That's of the gross domestic product of this country, right?
But that's because so many people are off with disability who have got a bad back, and nobody can actually gauge how bad their back is.
That's right.
Because you can't really measure it.
You can't.
No.
You see, the problem is, if you've got a specific cause, like sciatica or a herniated disc, then you can have an operation for it.
Yeah.
But most back conditions are untraceable. So researchers have speculated that by using electrodes to zap a branch of the spinal nerve near the L2 vertebra, right?
Vertebra.
Yeah. To make the lumbar multifidus muscle squeeze repeatedly. Sounds a bit unpleasant.
It does, doesn't
They
it?
could provide long-term pain relief by honing motor control in the lower back. See?
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen.
But it can be caused by any number of reasons, can it? Can it not? I mean, was there any particular thing that made your back twinge today?
No,
were you doing anything unusual?
No, do you know what? It can be as simple as sitting the wrong way in one of my luxurious seats at home in the penthouse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I sort of slim.
So what was it in your newly upholstered seat?
It was actually. It was.
Maybe it's down to that.
No,
then.
it's not down to that. I think if you get lazy and you slump back in your seat and then put my feet on the coffee table, that can sometimes be a trigger for the back to go wonky.
Yes.
And I try to avoid it at all times, but when you're tired, you know, when you've been working as long and as hard as I have to try and get everything right and put everything in place.
When you've been working as long and hard as you have, on any particular day, you mean, or just in general?
Just in general.
Oh, well, you mean through your whole life?
You through my whole life,
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. It sometimes puts your back out, you know. And it can be a huge problem. I remember once we got off a plane in Moscow, right?
Yeah.
And I felt absolutely fine. And then we got into a people carrier and went to Red Square. And we went to the Metropole Hotel where we were staying. And as I got out of the people carrier, my back literally went. You know, as I put my left foot onto the ground.
And what, does it just stiffen up?
No, it's like somebody just disconnects your spine from your what's this called? The pelvis. You see what I mean?
But what's the effect of that?
Well, it wobbles in the middle and you lose power of your legs.
Oh, what? So you kind of just fall over?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, fall over.
Well, this is exactly what happened in Red Square.
Presumably you were accused of being bladderated.
I was.
Yeah.
I was accused by a Red Square, army guard of disrespecting Mother Russia by arriving there in a state of vodka-induced bladderation.
Morally destitute.
That's right, flopping around on the floor And I tried to point out to this guy that, where I come from, Britain, we don't, it's not a particularly pleasant hobby to be thrashing around in 3 inches of snow on the floor in Red Square.
Quite.
I'm doing it because my back's gone, old Idiofsky.
Did they have to call for a stretcher?
Well, I need assistance to get into the hotel. Then I need lumber work on the lower back.
Shocking.
Yeah, it is shocking.
Well, I'm not going to give you any
plenty
lumber
of volunteers,
work.
by the way.
I'm not going to give you any lumber work if that's all right with you. We'll have to call other people if that's what happens. But we've got lots going on tonight. We've got Mark Donaldson, who's going to be coming on the show. We've got Cheryl Costa, author of UFO Sightings. We've also got Porkyvision.
Yes.
We've got loads of tweets as well. You can tweet us at the Two Mics. And also, we're going to be putting out for a Postman Pork. If you want to send some stuff in, because we're going to do one tomorrow, probably.
He eats his chips with just a fork.
Precisely. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
It's a wonderful night, you gotta take it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, you gotta shake it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, everybody can see. It's a wonderful night.
This is Talk Sport, we are the Two Mics. Simon has come up with a very good idea. He says, can't Mr. Parry try goat yoga for his bike?
Yoga, that's a very good idea, yeah.
We did that last week, didn't we? I think we might actually have a guest coming on the show tomorrow night with regard to goat yoga.
That's excellent.
From California.
Yeah.
Because California is one of those places where they do spot an awful lot of UFOs, by the way.
Yes, they do.
We'll be finding out about that later on. Ian has sent us a tweet as well. Yeah. A very nice tweet from Tokyo Bay.
Yeah.
9 o'clock in the morning. He says it's very hot and sweaty here, but he's listening to the show.
Where is that?
Tokyo.
Japan. Tokyo. Good morning, Tokyo.
I think I've asked you this. You've not been to Tokyo, have you?
No, that was the theme music for the Olympics in 1964.
When they had them in Tokyo.
Good morning, Tokyo.
Wasn't that just the thing that they used to sort of wake everybody up?
No, it was the theme music.
Was it?
Yeah, I think it was the BBC theme music. When you say about Tokyo, I was going to go to Tokyo.
Yeah.
Because there was some kind of celebrity show where people won these great prizes, and we had a deal at the Express to go with the winners of these great prizes, like, Acapulco and all that kind of stuff, right? So
which is actually kind of a hideous tour of duty, because you'd actually have to spend time with these people.
Oh, it's awful.
Which would not be nice.
Honestly, if people say, you got a free holiday in Tokyo or Acapulco or something, you say, yeah, but you have to actually escort a couple of morons, who've won a game show, you know what I mean?
That's a bit harsh, though.
It is a bit harsh. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. A couple of prize winners,
that's, I think, what you meant.
Yeah, who've won a game show prize, and they treat you like their personal sort of maid or servant or something, and you have to get everything for them and all that, because the whole idea is when you get there, you do a big double-page spread feature of them frolicking around on the beach in Acapulco, But anyway, I was...
But inevitably something always goes horribly wrong.
Always goes horribly. They have a terrible row or something like that, Yeah, that's right.
Falls down, cracks their head open.
Yes, that's right, something like that. Or the aeroplane gets diverted or something, But anyway, so I said, so I thought, well, that's not bad. I haven't been to Japan before. So, unfortunately, my sister then decided to get married. My father had died, so she needed somebody to walk her up the aisle.
I remember you telling us this story.
So obviously I did my familial duty and turned down the trip to Tokyo.
Quite a decent thing to do.
Yes, that's right. And I've never regretted it since, of course, because... she's had an inspiring life ever since.
Yes, well, that was a very good thing to do.
Yeah.
Minding people was always a nightmare. I remember
it's horrible.
An ex-colleague of mine, who had to mind somebody who was involved in some kind of, I think it was some kind of big crime case.
Yeah.
Right? But the guy who he was minding was in fact in some form of relationship with this other girl who had been in, it was a sort of triangle of love or something like that.
Right.
And he was always writing her love letters and asking this guy to sort of pass them on to her.
Yeah, right.
Because he wasn't able to get out of the house. And he used to write the most appalling stuff, apparently, which was so kind of ghastly that he thought that it was in some way poetic.
Yes.
And I can't even really repeat any of it.
No,
it's a family show.
No, I wouldn't.
But it was basically horrendous kind of prose.
Oh, God.
Which was very explicit sexually.
I used to...
and saying, could you pass this love letter on to my girlfriend?
I used to hate the mining operation. It was dreadful. I had to spend a night once in some horrible hovel of a home in somewhere like Essex or somewhere. But,
somewhere like Essex?
Yeah, well, a poor part of Essex, you know what I mean? And what happened was, it was a terribly tragic story. It was one of these typical, the mother had left her husband and shacked up with a new boyfriend, and the new boyfriend had terribly abused the child. You know what I mean? It happens all the time. It's a terrible social scenario. And so the boyfriend was on trial for the murder of the little child, a terribly tragic story. Right. But the biological father actually saw this as an opportunity to become famous.
Really?
It was shocking. You wouldn't believe it. Now, he worked in Tesco's, and he used to remind me, he used to get me to ring up Tesco's every day to say that he needs another day off. He's psychologically, traumatised by the trial. Right. And he used to say things like, "Cool, smart. The thing is, if I was just a shelf stacker, it wouldn't matter, would it? But I have to let them know every morning because I'm deputy produce manager."
Deputy produce manager, big job. Yeah.
So I then started calling him. Right. I then started calling him the cauliflower kid. Right. Because
that's very sympathetic of him.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure he appreciated that.
That's right. Yeah.
Helped his trauma, no doubt, no end.
But he spent all day, and I mean, never, don't forget this was a tragedy. A poor child had died, and he was the father. The father. He should have been traumatised by all this and terrible. He spent all day watching over and over again videos of the interviews he'd given to ITV and BBC in preparation for the story after the boyfriend got convicted. Yeah. And he just kept watching them. He loved it. He loved seeing himself on screen. Yeah. And then he'd done a couple of interviews when the poor child had first been killed and, the reaction from the biological father. Right. And he was mock crying all the time in these interviews.
That is shocking.
And in the end, at the Old Bailey, you won't believe this, I was sitting next to him when the verdict came in guilty, you know, and it was all this head in hands and all that kind of stuff. Right. And we came down the stairs and we were talking. We turned right into the courtyard at the Old Bailey, and at the end of the courtyard were all the photographers and all that. And as soon as the camera started going off, he suddenly did my legs are wobbly and I'm grief-stricken. He was an appalling person.
That's terrible.
An appalling, absolutely shocking, horrible person.
But you guys had bought him up.
We bought him up, unfortunately.
So you couldn't write all that?
No, I couldn't write all that at all. And then we had to get him off to a hotel. And of course, you had to literally kick your way through the mob of fellow journalists to get to the taxi. Right. And that was the time when what happened was Chris Boffey, who's still around in Fleet
Street, is,
and an old colleague, an old mate, worked for another paper. He grabbed hold of the taxi door, and he's a big guy, Chris, about 6'2", 6'3". He wouldn't move because, he was keeping the door open so other people could take photographs of the Irish father that we'd bought up. Right. And when I said to the driver, "Move," and I started hammering on his window, I said, "I told you to move." So the taxi driver put his foot down and the door of the taxi came off. Right. Oh, it was a complete fiasco. And this was all happening in the Old Bailey, you know.
I mean, those things just don't happen anymore, do they? Because there isn't that kind of competitive spirit going on between newspapers. But we have many tales to tell about that, which we shall do. Yeah. Now, let's go back to the football for a moment, if you don't mind, because back on the back page of the Daily Mirror is the story that we mentioned earlier on. Manchester City to splash £300 million on the world's best. Now, apparently, the best talent in the world is going to come to Manchester City for £300 million. Well, I've got two questions about that. One, if they're going to spend £300 million, what's to stop Man United from spending £400 million? Yes. Or Chelsea from spending £500 million? Yeah. Or possibly Arsenal from spending, maybe 50 million.
There's only a certain number of players around.
But I mean, the best talent in the world and all that, that's all very well, but where's it going to come from? Where are all these players?
You know what? This sounds like a Roy the Rovers story to me. It's like, billionaire arrives at club and says, "Go and get all the best players in the world and bring them here." That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not usually that easy, is it? But
I don't think it's going to be that easy because they've already kind of had that policy in place for the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And certainly for the last 3 managers, they have gone out there and bought what they thought were the best players. They bought John Stones, who was meant to be brilliant. They bought Kevin De Bruyne, who was meant to be brilliant. Yes. Sergio Aguero, who was meant to be brilliant. And the list goes on and on and on. Yeah. Yaya Toure, but it hasn't worked. I mean, you wouldn't say they're unsuccessful, but they're not as successful as they should be, are they?
I mean, this money is coming from the Manchester City owner, Khaldoon Al-Mubarak, who has admitted the first Premier League campaign under Pep Guardiola was nothing to celebrate. So he's saying, "There's nothing that annoys me more than people calling or messaging to congratulate me on third place. Yeah. My answer is pretty standard to everyone. There's nothing to congratulate. Only congratulate me when we win the league."
And it's not as if they've got anything off to the side, like the League Cup or the FA Cup or anything else. No. They didn't last as long in the Champions League as they did the year before.
No, that's absolutely
when
right.
they got to the semi-finals with Mr. Pellegrini.
Yes, that's right.
So, I mean, and also, what about Pep Guardiola, who is meant to be the man who is able to work his magic on on almost a number of players.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Well, and what does it mean for the players who are there? I mean, there's so many questions.
Questions.
On the back of the same paper, it's got Mahrez, I'm out of here, Leicester facing a meltdown, Riyad Mahrez is demanding to leave, and lots of other stars apparently want to move away. Well, maybe Manchester City will buy some of them.
Maybe they will. Yeah, I mean, you can't blame those players for wanting to leave. I said it then, and I'll say it now, that Claudio Ranieri should have been sacked after they won the Premiership if the owners wanted to then put themselves on the European map.
Sure, but if he's up for grabs for 35 million at Monaco, for example, who are apparently interested in him, what's to stop Manchester City going, I'll tell you what, we'll offer you 50 million.
Well, perhaps he wants to go to Monaco.
Yeah, but all they're going to do is...
Some people do.
Yeah, that's true. And he's Algerian, so, you know, he may wish to be in a sort of part of the French Empire.
Yes.
But in the end, surely the price of all these players is just going to go up.
Yeah.
That's all that's going to happen.
Of course it is. You're absolutely right. The spiral of cost in football was triggered originally by Mr. Abramovich, who came here and really had a bottomless pit of money to try and establish Chelsea, which he did very, very successfully.
Yeah.
But of course, the other clubs then left in the wake because they didn't have billionaire, what I would call, free money owners. And until you get a free money owner in football these days, you're not really in the competitive area.
Right.
Despite the fact that clubs like Leicester can, carpet bag the elite.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Lots and lots more talk about all that kind of stuff coming up with Mark Donaldson, who's with ESPN. He's also going to bring us up to date with the latest on Tiger Woods. We touched on it earlier on when the show started.
Yeah.
But it's a very mysterious situation with Tiger Woods. We're not really sure precisely how it's going to end up. He is going to face some kind of charge.
We don't know what's going on in his head.
He is going to have to go to court.
So if he's going to face a charge, he's going to face a charge, and we've established, even the police statement establishes there was no alcohol involved.
Yeah.
What's he going to be charged with?
Well, he's charged with driving under the influence of something.
What,
right?
Prescription drugs?
It could be prescription drugs.
But
but if you're not in charge, if you are in a state of disrepair in your car, i.e. you're not in charge of the vehicle, that is a criminal offence. The fact that he was asleep at the wheel is a criminal offence.
But the car wasn't moving when he was asleep.
It doesn't matter.
Although it probably had been because it was all smashed up.
But even if you, for example, if you were to get into your car now, sit down on the street and fall asleep in the driver's seat, that is an offence.
If you started the engine, you mean?
Well, no, just sitting in the driver's seat is an offence. You have to go, if you want to go to sleep in your car, you have to get in the back.
What, even in this country?
Yeah, absolutely.
What, so if it was a very cold night here and we'd finished work and it was, say we finished at 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so we finished at the time that the previous show finished.
Yeah.
You go downstairs, the battery's flat in the car. I'm going to have to... And you haven't had anything to drink because you've been working here.
You're going to have to call, the RAC or something.
Yeah, you call out the other and they say, we're going to be 2 hours. I'm sorry, it's a bitterly cold night.
Yeah.
So you say, that's all right, don't worry, I'll have a kip in the car.
Yeah.
So you get into the passenger seat, you lock the door, and you put the seat back and start... And if a policeman arrived...
You're all right. No, the passenger seat's okay. You can have the passenger seat.
No, sorry, in the driver's seat.
Yeah, the driver's seat is an offence. Because you are deemed to be in charge of the car if you're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, but if you're in charge of the car and the engine's not starting and it's incapable of starting because the battery's flat, then that's a pretty stupid law.
Well, it might be, but
in my view.
But that is the law.
Yeah.
So he will be done for that, absolutely. But both front tyres were flat and both front and back bumpers were damaged. The idea that they've come out and said, well, he hasn't hit anything is extraordinary.
Yes, it is, yeah.
I mean, because in order to have 2 flat tyres, I presume he was probably driving, doesn't say what kind of car.
And a scraped car.
Yeah, he doesn't say what kind of car he was driving, but I assume it was quite an expensive car, quite a well-made car.
Yes.
I mean, the last car that he wrecked in a fire hydrant was a Cadillac Escalade, which is a massive 4x4,
Is that the one that his wife attacked with a golf club?
That's the one, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and he
I was only smashing open the back window to get Tiger out.
That's right.
You were trying to kill him.
No, you were trying to kill him with a 9-iron.
Yeah, that's
right. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Just found out that he'd been, involving himself, fraternising with more strippers than he could shake a stick at.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we'll get into all of that with Mark Donaldson. Loads more to come. This is Talk Sport.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The enduring home of football.
It's modern radio, only better.
Talk Sport.
Hey! The sun goes down like a bad, bad dream. You end up tight, gotta let off steam. They say they can break you again and again. If life is a radio, turn up to 10. These are crazy.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. You can tweet us at the Two Mics, of course. Find us on Facebook as well. The Two Mics is the name of the page. Or you can find us at Mike Parry 8, at IROMG. Adrian says this. Yes. He did say that Tiger Woods' car was a Mercedes. I wonder if it was a 3.5 litre fastback.
No.
Hashtag Porky muscle car.
No,
you have come across the police report, haven't you?
The police report
the
here
Tiger Woods
is,
police report, because we've got a statement from Tiger Woods on there about what indeed he is now going to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's made that statement, I think, 24 hours ago. I understand the severity sincerity of what I did, and I take full responsibility, da-da-da-da. I went on to say no alcohol was involved, which the police have confirmed. But this is quite interesting. Observation of driver. Upon my arrival, this is the police officer, right? After speaking to officers on scene, I made contact with the sole occupant of the vehicle, who was later positively identified as B.M. Eldrick T. Woods. Yes. Seated in the driver's seat of the vehicle, Woods was extremely slow and had slurred speech. Right. Woods stated he was coming from L.A., California, from golfing. Oh, yeah. Woods stated he did not know where he was when we talked to him at the scene. Woods had changed his story of where he was going and where he was coming from. Woods asked how far from his home he was. It should be noted that Woods was heading southbound away from Hobe Sound. Takes several prescriptions, he told us. Yes. General observation, speech, extremely slow and slurred, mumbled and confused. Attitude, cooperative but confused. Clothing, white shirt, black shorts, black and white shoes. And then on the other side, there's a whole litany of what they do when they run you through various exercises, like when you're supposed to, take your finger and put it towards your nose, when you're supposed to walk heel to toe on a line, all those. Walk and turn, one leg stand, the finger to nose. And he failed them all. And the Romberg alphabet. When asked if he understood directions, he stated yes, recite entire national anthem backwards. After several times explaining instructions, he completed the task correctly, but it took him 3 or 4 occasions to complete this. Reciting the national anthem backwards is quite hard to do. I don't think I'd be able to do that if I was sober. No, I don't think I would either. God save our gracious Queen. How can you do that backwards? God save our gracious Queen. Can you even do that backwards? God save our gracious Queen. So you would go Queen, gracious. Save God. Yeah. Yeah, that's hard to do, isn't it? Is. It's quite hard to do. Anyway, that's all very well. Now... what do you mean it's all very well? Well, I mean, he's a famous man, and it's not all very well for him. It's not very well for him. I agree. We'll find out exactly how it's not going to be well. Yes, not well. We're going to talk to our expert over there in a minute. Yes. Now, then, talking about famous people, right? Yeah. Now, I just don't. There's some mystery going on here in the life of one of our most popular and favoured entertainers, and that's Elton John. Yes. Without a shadow of a doubt. What do you mean when you say something weird? Well, I saw a big interview with Rod Stewart, Sir Rod Stewart, I should add, obviously, at the weekend, and he was talking about the preparations for Isle of Wight. Yes. Remember when we went with him up to Scotland, and he said, we're flying to the Isle of Wight in a 19-seater helicopter? Yes, he did. I thought it was odd that he said it was actually 19 seats, but he put in this piece I read, it is a 19-seat helicopter. Well, it's a Sikorsky, I think. It's a Sikorsky, and I think he's taken the whole of the Stewart clan with him, because obviously a very proud day. He's taking his 2 boys and I kind of, absolutely. Great. So he's headlining at the Isle of Wight Festival. Right, no problem. Yeah, which is what? Is it in June sometime? I think it's in a week's time. Right. I think it's around about the same time as the general election or the weekend after. Which we are, by the way, if anybody doesn't know this, if they haven't followed it on Twitter, we will be doing an overnight special on the night of the election. So you don't want to go anywhere, you want to listen to it here. You do want to listen to it here because it'll be fascinating, honestly, the way it spills out. Yeah. However... within that piece that I read, he indicated that he and Elton John have been friends for many years and still are. Now, so he's going off to do that, and that will, obviously be the centre stage and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, I see an advert in another publication at the weekend. Elton John and his band, the Wonderful Crazy Night Tour, okay? Yeah. Tickets available now. Yeah. And then it lists the venues he's going to. Okay. Now, this is a world superstar who, like Rod Stewart, often has bookings in Las Vegas, on maybe 3 or 4 weeks at a time or something like that, and who could fill, I reckon, a stadium almost anywhere in the world. So why is he doing this tour, which goes to the 3 AAA County Ground Derby? Right. The Abax... that's Derby County's football stadium. Yes, well, that's a stadium, right? Okay. Yeah, but it's Derby. Yeah, but it's still a stadium. But it's Derby. Well, so what? It's a Derby. It's not London or Tokyo or Las Vegas or New York. It's Derby. Well, yeah, but why wouldn't he want to go to Derby? I mean, Derby is a catch-all area for the East Midlands, isn't it? Right, another place on this tour, right? The Abax Stadium, Peterborough. Peterborough's football stadium, okay. No, I don't get this. This is Elton John. What's he bothering going to Peterborough to do a concert for? Because maybe he's deliberately decided to go to those types of places rather than the big stadiums like, the Etihad or the Emirates or Wembley or anything like that. How about this next one? Maybe it's a better deal.
Maybe he's got an eye on the pennies.
He's got a fortune of about
I know that.
300 or 400 million.
No, but
quid.
you and I know, for example, there are certain venues that charge more money than others.
Sure.
Maybe because he's. I mean, I know people have said this about Sir Rod Stewart as well. That you get to be as famous and as successful as these guys because you go. Well, hang on, I'm not going to get ripped off.
Yeah.
And if you want to play at Wembley, I wouldn't be surprised that they charge you an awful lot more money than they do at Peterborough.
Yeah, but there's an awful lot more people there, and they pay an awful lot more for the privilege of sitting in Wembley.
But maybe he feels he's not absolutely at his peak anymore, and so he wants to play a slightly smaller stadium.
So he moves on from there to the Select Security Stadium, Widnes. No, seriously.
No, I know.
Seriously.
I know.
Right, so you and I...
Actually, I take my hat off to him for doing it. That's what I say.
So hang on. So you and I just happened to be working up in the northwest of England. We're doing some Porky scratchings work in Wigan.
Yeah, right.
We're making our way back to Manchester, something like that. We say, let's stop off in Widnes.
Yeah.
And then as we're having a pint of beer in a bar in Widnes, some guy says, do you want to buy a couple of tickets for the Elton John concert tonight? We said, well, we're not going back to London till later. No, he's here in Widnes tonight.
Yeah.
No,
I like that. I like it.
You're having me on.
Yeah.
Elton John in Widnes. What's he doing in Widnes?
Well, maybe he just feels like he wants to play places he's never been.
But
he's never played before.
Here's the real cracker.
I mean, I remember when he played Dodger Stadium in LA.
Exactly.
Remember? I mean, that famous sort of film. You can see the film.
Of course,
of him all dressed up in the stars and stripes and everything.
Yeah.
Massive stadium, baseball stadium for the LA Dodgers.
Yeah, but here's where the tour ends, right? The Excelsior Stadium, Airdrie. Airdrie.
Well, now you really are scraping the barrel.
That's what I'm saying. Why would Elton John pitch up in Airdrie?
I'm allowed to say that because I know about Airdrie.
Yeah.
But I mean, but maybe there must be a reason, right? Presumably all of these stadiums have got a specific
Glasgow,
number.
Edinburgh,
No, but hang on.
Aberdeen.
How about this for a thought? Maybe all of these stadiums have something in common, which is not just that they're all in sort of unlikely places for Elton John to go.
They're all in the most unfashionable towns in Britain.
But that's not a bad thing. I think maybe it's more about the numbers that they hold.
Yeah.
Maybe they all hold something like, say, 25,000. And that's the kind of size of a stadium he wants. Is that possible?
No, I think that's very unlikely.
Why?
Well, because 25,000 people from Widnes are not going to go to an Elton John concert.
No, but you
25,000 people in Widnes don't bother going to see the local rugby team.
No, but you'll get people from Liverpool, from Manchester, from Leeds, from Sheffield going to Widnes, won't you?
No.
Why not?
Well, because the point is, because he's also doing Ewood Park Blackburn, right, the week before, which is in
Park, you mean?
Ewood Park, which is the northwest of England.
Yeah.
He's doing Leeds.
Right.
And I just don't get it. I just don't get how.
No, I think he's obviously targeted these places because they've got the right size of venue.
Well,
that's obviously what he's done.
You say so, but I mean, I just find it absolutely bizarre, utterly bizarre.
I don't know why you do. I think you're being slightly disingenuous to all of these
places.
No, I'm not
being disingenuous.
Suggesting that they're all kind of horrible places that nobody like him as a superstar should ever go.
No, I'm not. All I'm saying is that Widnes is not exactly the rock and roll capital of Europe.
But for example, you will have seen...
Or even the northwest of England.
People have been in the past...
Or even Lancashire.
No, but people in the past have gone to play Nebworth, right, which is outside of London. It's not necessarily...
Yeah, but that's a huge festival, international festival.
Yeah.
Widnes is not an internationally recognised venue for rock superstars.
Well, yeah, well,
I
maybe
think
now...
it's absolutely bizarre.
Well, now maybe it will be. And, for example, the Milton Keynes Bowl, people have gone to play there, which is also not a place you would think is particularly famous for rock stars. You know, I quite like the idea that he's doing it. I think he's maybe trying to be a man of the people.
I think it's absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. But anyway, I mean, that's look, he's one of the most successful performers in the history of rock and roll.
Yeah.
So who am I to question the location of the live shows he does?
Wilco says this, guys, the 3A stadium in Derby is the cricket ground and not Pride Park, home of the mighty Rams.
Yeah, well...
I will not be buying a ticket.
No, he'll not buy a ticket. So you said it was the football ground. Of course,
well, I assumed it was.
Well, it's not. So he's playing at a cricket ground.
A cricket ground. Well, it must be about the numbers. It's got to be about the numbers.
I just don't get
They must not be confident enough to sell a big stadium.
Well, I tell you what, I find it utterly bizarre.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, if that's what Sir Elton John thinks he should do, then
I think he knows what he's doing.
I
think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Here's one from Adrian who says, Porky's man of the people unless those people are from Derby, Peterborough or Widnes.
No, I'm not.
Of you.
No.
Upset all these people now.
No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, I just think it's a very bizarre sort of map of Britain for Sir Elton John to trail around. to give live concerts.
Well, and a lot of people coming in with complimentary comments on this. Nigel from Fulham says Elton John has for some time performed at lesser arenas in the UK. Yeah. Several years ago, he did the rugby ground at Lee. He does it to finance his lifestyle, presumably, and he likes performing.
Well, he likes performing, certainly, but I don't think he needs to finance his lifestyle because he's a very wealthy man. Perhaps he likes working, getting on the road.
Oh, he did once admit to spending £250,000 in 1 year on flowers.
That's right. And when he was asked in court, why did you do that? He said, I like flowers.
I like flowers.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's his money. So, of course he can. Yeah.
I think we might have to have some Elton John music now. Yeah. This is Talk Sport.
Yeah.
The Two Mics. Simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Which is one thing. Sean says both artists, and he means Rod Stewart and Elton John, did want to play smaller stadiums, and we had the privilege to have them in Scotland.
Really?
And a couple here who say, let's see, where are we? Dave says, man of the people, Porky, disrespecting Derby, Peterborough and Widnes.
No, not at all, not at all.
And Nick saying that both Rod Stewart and Elton John have performed at Plymouth Argyle's ground.
Well, that's brilliant. It's very commendable.
It must be something to do with either just getting closer to their fan base
could be.
in smaller places, or maybe they just feel nicer doing smaller stadiums.
Absolutely.
I imagine if you do somewhere like Wembley, you know, it's a massive crowd of maybe 90,000, 100,000.
And you think it's a bit impersonal?
Maybe it's a bit impersonal for them. And whereas if they do, say, 25, that's a little bit better.
Could be.
There's still a lot of people.
Anyway, these guys are both very successful. So, excuse me, who am I to question the locations of where Elton John does his concerts?
Well, indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's one from Ian, who says, Elton at his best, his LP Captain Fantastic is beautiful, melodic, glorious. Elton's voice is stunning. Get it in vinyl. Yeah. Actually, I have that in vinyl, and I play it on a regular basis.
Well, Captain Fantastic. What's the best track on there?
Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the title track is pretty great.
Yeah, Is Benny and the Jets on there?
No, but that's on.
Benny and the Jets.
No, but I tell you what, you might know the single from that. I think the single from that album is "Someone Saved My Life Tonight." You know that one?
No.
"Someone Saved My Life Tonight" was about his attempts at committing suicide. It's a great song.
That's terrible.
We might hear it coming out, maybe some of the breaks coming up in the next hour.
Okay, that's excellent. Now, £300 million. Okay, Manchester City want to spend all that. Do you know what? If I was a politician in this country and there's an election coming up, I might just leap on that sum and I might just say, hang on, the football industry is awash with money.
Yeah.
You know, we read about an agent who made £40 million out of a couple of deals involving Paul Pogba.
Paul Pogba,
absolutely. And you're talking about a footballer with Arsenal negotiating Ozil, Sanchez, salaries of up to £285,000 a week.
Right.
I'm sure if I was a politician, I'd say this is a very, very rich source of extra income
because
for the
most people look at footballers and think, well, they can probably afford to pay a little bit more in tax.
Well, the club can. So you say, right, put 10% tax on all transfer fees. So if City are spending $300 million, you get $30 million.
Right.
And with that $30 million, you can either fund one side's programme on childcare or another side's programme on how the elderly look after themselves and the costs involved in that.
That could be done. Well, Jeremy Corbyn has already put out his in his manifesto a 5% tax on Premier League TV rights. And he says that not only does he want to do that if he gets elected, but he would ask for that money to be given reshaped through to grassroots football.
Yes.
So that, grassroots football, which he says is not getting looked after properly, should get looked after better with the trickle-down effect.
I mean, that 5% of the football TV Premier League rights would amount to about 100 million.
I was going to say.
Because it's over 2 billion. Yeah, it's over 2 billion. Yeah. And so, therefore, that sort of policy would provide real revenues, wouldn't it?
Yes.
But
he says that the grassroots game has been shamefully starved of funding over recent years.
Yep.
Youth football can't find pitches to play on. There's some truth to that. And despite what the FA try to do, it is difficult to get money out of the Premier League and into every other league.
Yes, sure. Whereas on the other side,
whether that's going to work or not, I don't know.
The old Tories, of course, always say, we will employ a fair tax policy, but haven't quite interpreted it as far as Mr Corbyn has.
Well, one of the things that's been very clear about this election, I don't know whether you saw that sort of supposed debate. There wasn't really a debate last night. The night before, between Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May. I couldn't understand the format.
Was that the one that Paxman was doing?
And Paxman got a lot of criticism.
Didn't he interview one and interview the other? They didn't actually speak to each other.
No, there was no actual... And what they also did was the fact that they then said, and we're going to get questions from the audience as well, and that'll be really good.
Yeah.
But it was all very odd.
Yeah, I found it very droll, actually.
Yeah.
I do find a lot of political reporting in this country incredibly boring because it's taken so seriously. And the thing about political reporting live is that the trick is to know when the interesting bit's going to come, but you don't because politicians are so unpredictable in the way they deliver their speeches, and therefore you have to listen to the whole damn thing just to find out later that 40 seconds in a 10-minute speech was the only interesting bit that was in it.
Well, what you want is for them to mess it all up, really, don't you? Which they often do in spades. Yes. Now, let's stop all that for a moment, because we'll get back to that. We've got to talk to Mark Donaldson, who is here and has been waiting very patiently.
Excellent.
Mark, a very good morning to you. Apologies.
Morning, gents. How are you?
Yeah,
very well.
Pretty good, mate.
Now, we're looking here at the police report on Tiger Woods. Let's start off with that, because amongst the descriptions of him being found sort of falling asleep in his car and being very unresponsive and slurring his words, it's a bit sort of bizarre that they describe his car having two front tyres that were flat and some scrapes on the car, but he didn't actually hit anything. What do they mean?
We don't know, is the bottom line. When you've got a superstar, not just a sports superstar, but someone like Tiger Woods, and something like this happens, it's the same as like a really famous film star, movie star, or musician, and this was to happen to them. Front page news. Now, you've got websites like TMZ over here, which is a website which got a lot of Tiger stuff correct in 2010, but they were speculating, he was drunk, he could smell breath, and the officer could smell breath when he did all that. There's a difference between being first and being right. It was a 0.00% blood alcohol test. The problem was the drugs in his system. He'd fallen asleep. He was in the middle of a busy junction during the day, albeit at 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. It wasn't a busy junction. So the bottom line is, it's okay to come out and report facts, but when you've got so many interviews and so many websites and everything like that, trying to get the right story, the first thing you hear when something like this happens, you tend to just take on board. So when people read that he was drinking and everything like that, that's what you believe. It's not the case. Now, for me, this is sad. This is a really sad story. Just because you've got all that money in the bank, you're still a human being. And hopefully he gets the help that's required, Tiger. But it, once again, puts a big question mark over his future in sport. I think the most important thing for him right now is to get healthy again before he even contemplates golf.
Absolutely, and certainly there are plenty of stories abound about him. But I mean, one of the problems is that we don't really know what his domestic situation is, and you're quite right to say it's sad, Mark, and I agree with you. But people will have a hunger to find out what is going on. And in some ways, you can't blame the media for trying to find out.
I mean, Mark, the thing is, looking at the evidence here, and I've poured through everything, I mean, he is supposed now to have taken 4 drugs that were named, which he told the police. They are Vicodin, Vioxx, Solurex and Torix, and all 4 of those are taken by people who are suffering chronic backache.
Yeah.
So,
and here's another thing, Porky. Depending on what you read, he's either taken all 4. The one I read said he's only on 3 of them right now.
Yeah, Vioxx he hasn't taken this year.
He only tested positive for 3.
Yeah, that's right. Vioxx he hasn't taken this year, he told the cops. But I mean, what I'm saying is, I can't believe he even got into a car and was driving a car if he is so pained by his back that he has to take a cocktail of drugs even to get through the day. Shouldn't he have been on a sort of a machine stretching his back out or something rather than in a car?
That's what we don't know, right?
No, we just don't know this. And people immediately came to a conclusion, whether it's putting 2 and 2 together and saying that equals 5.
Yeah.
How much money does he earn? Can he not afford a driver? Can he not afford an Uber? Now, ultimately, the problem that Tiger's got right now, and he's been in the public spotlight since he was 5, 6, 7 years old, and there was videos on local news about how this kid was going to be the next big thing. He only knows how to live one way. He's not someone like Michael Jordan who was open to the media, and as a result of that, you were able to get more access into his life. He's been a closed shop. Whether or not he's been ill-advised by some of his advisors, maybe he has. But now, everyone wants to know more. And you're right about the media wanting to know more, but this is the issue right now, guys. We live in a society that's hungry for news, whether it's right or wrong. Look at the extreme sadness that happened in Manchester, and look at over here. We were putting stories out on the internet, and newspapers were putting stuff online about how bombs were made and everything like that. And there's a grey area. The media has a duty to report things, report facts, but who was leaking that stuff to them? So it's a whole other argument for another day. But again, I'll go back to my initial point. For me, this is a really sad story.
It is a sad story, and you'd have to admit probably that it is the end of Tiger Woods' golfing career, certainly, that you wouldn't expect him to come back. I mean, I've always felt that after what happened the first time with the car and the fire hydrant and his first wife, that would be the end of him ever winning anything major again.
Yes.
And so it has somehow proved.
Yeah.
And as you say, maybe the most important thing is for him to get better. But he also likes the limelight as well. That's another aspect of it.
He does, of course. Of course, and that's the issue. First of all, you want him to get back and healthy before you even think about golf. Just thinking about golf, look at Davis Love. He came back from reconstructive back surgery. He won on the PGA Tour after that. So for me, what I would love now is if he could put this behind him and he could end up coming back, winning a tournament. I don't think it's going to happen, but if he does, that for me would be a wonderful story.
Yeah, it would be. Let's move over to football.
Yes.
Big story here tonight is about Arsene Wenger. But before we get to that, because we kind of talked about that a little bit last night, we sort of expected this would happen.
Yeah.
Manchester City talking about spending 300 million quid. You know, this is surely just going to act as a massive inflationary bubble within the football world. And people who you might have been able to get last season for 20 million are going to cost 40, aren't they?
That's the problem. Look at the Benfica goalkeeper, Ederson Moraes.
Yeah.
I covered a lot of Benfica games this season. I mean, he conceded 12 goals in 27 appearances. He's a really good goalkeeper, but he's going to cost more than Buffon. Is he worth more than Buffon? That's not the issue that we have in football right now. Is Pogba worth 83 million? It's not his fault that someone's willing to pay that, but that's what you're going to have to pay. Troy Deeney's been linked with clubs for 35 million.
Right.
It's a different society that we're dealing with now. He's a good goalkeeper. He's only worth what people are willing to pay. And if City are wanting to do their business early, which is the key for me here, they want to get their stuff done. And I looked at the odds for next season. They're already into 2-1 favourites. You could have got as much as 3-1 at the end of the season. They're already 2-1 and they'll get shorter.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, as they've seen in the past, in previous seasons with different managers, you know, spending a load of money isn't always the way. I mean, Mahrez from Leicester supposedly is going to be going to Monaco possibly for 35 million or 30 million. You know, City may say, well, I'll tell you what, we'll buy him for 60. And he suddenly goes to Manchester City.
Where do you fit them all in?
Yeah.
There's another thing as well. I mean, Vincent Kompany, injury prone. Hopefully he recovers and plays a full season because he ended the season pretty well. But you've got Jesus and Aguero. If you play a 4-2-3-1, then who do you play up front? Where do you play Jesus? You've got Bernardo Silva coming in. You've still got Kevin De Bruyne to fit in. You've got Leroy Sané to fit in. You've got David Silva to fit in.
You have.
I mean, where do you put all these guys?
Well, it's absolutely true. And the thing is, Mark, whilst the super clubs and the mega-rich clubs are piling up the numbers, we are watching the demise of Leicester and, in fact, the breaking up of the Premier League team. Riyad Mahrez has now expressed his desire to leave. And I tell you what, that'll just cause a stampede out of Leicester, and it's all over for them.
Exactly.
You know what I was thinking earlier, Porky? How's Jamie Vardy feeling? What's he thinking tonight?
Yeah.
A chance to go to Arsenal at the end of last season.
Exactly.
He's regretting that now?
Of course he's regretting it.
I think he definitely is regretting it, but maybe he's thinking he'll get another spread in OK Magazine. You know, we shall see. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Mark Donaldson there reporting in from ESPN in the United States of America. Tiger Woods, definitely a massive mystery, but people do want to know what is going on, and unfortunately he's going to have to come clean. This is Talk Sport. More coming up. This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes. Got one here from Craig in Cheshire. He says, tell Porky to check Sir Rod's tour locations last year. Even more places of disrespect.
No.
And then somebody has put up, Bolo says, he plays lesser-known venues, does Sir Rod, and he says, hope he's kept you tickets for the Isle of Wight. There's only 8 tickets left.
What?
It says here on this thing, Sunday the 11th of June is the Isle of Wight.
That's right,
but he's also playing Durham County Cricket Club in Chester Street on Friday the 9th of June. On Wednesday the 7th of June, he's at Greenhouse Meadow in Shrewsbury.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's playing like some of these smaller venues as well.
Top locations.
There must be some trick to it that, you know, it's obviously works better for them, or it's a more optimum number. Because I guess, you know, you're better to sell out a 25,000-seat arena than try and sell out a 90,000 one and not sell it out.
Exactly, you're absolutely right.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely right. That's the strategy, obviously.
I would think so.
Now, I got an invitation today
to
go and see the Titanic Visitor Centre in Belfast.
Oh, right. I'm told that's quite a good place to go.
I'm told it's brilliant.
Belfast.
Belfast. I've never met a Belfast. And, of course, you'd have to go to Belfast first to go and see it. But, it's a two-pronged fork, really, because apparently it's a very, very popular visitor centre.
Yeah.
But it does illustrate, perhaps, the demise of the Holland and Wolff shipyard, upon which it's based, of course, which built the Titanic.
Yeah, but apparently the whole area around where they've now built this Titanic Museum has been reclaimed in the same way that sort of, Canary Wharf reclaimed Docklands for lots and lots of businesses.
Do you know what they want to develop it as? I'm told they want to start making films there. I mean, really make it like the new location in Europe where you go and make all your films with big film studios.
Like new sort of Pinewood
and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, listen, so having received that, I thought I will do research in my journals on the latest Titanic, because, of course, you came up with this mad theory last year sometime that there was a fire burning on the Titanic.
It was not my mad theory. It was a theory, and in fact, not so much a theory as a statement of fact by people who investigated what happened.
Yeah. That the coal that was stored in the hold to fire the boilers, obviously, and that drove the engines of the propellers
and
of the
big
Titanic.
smokestacks that were four of them,
smokestacks and all that. Where the coal was stored, the coal was actually alight.
Yes.
And therefore that weakened the steel on that side of the ship.
That's exactly what they said.
So when they hit the iceberg, I mean, I've always wondered how an iceberg could slice through metal anyway, really, because ice is ice and made of water, and metal is metal made of
But I suppose,
steel.
I mean, icebergs are very, very, very hard, aren't they?
Yes, they are, very hard, particularly if they're about -40 and all that kind of stuff. However, so that, that one's up for debate and all that kind of stuff.
It sounds to me like you're beginning to believe it might be happening.
No.
The way you described it.
No, what I'm saying is that's the theory. Whether the theory was ever put into practice, I don't know. However, I have found another possible cause of the Titanic sinking.
Why are you speaking like Winston Churchill? I have found another.
Well, I have.
I have found another.
I have.
That sounded quite statesman-like.
Did you know that the Titanic was carrying, and probably still is, a cursed Egyptian mummy?
Really?
In the cargo hold.
No, I didn't know that.
Ah, right.
So you're saying that this is some kind of Tutankhamun-esque
Yes, I am. Yes.
That sunk the ship?
Yes,
what a load of rubbish.
I am.
So you'd be more willing to believe the curse of a mummy than you would an actual scientific study on the fact that fire was caused a weakness in the hull, which actually meant that it sank because it was weak.
Absolutely.
That's mad.
A bloke called William Thomas Steed, right?
Yeah.
He was a leading journalist, but also an investigator into the mysticism and spiritualism of Egyptology.
Oh, yeah.
And he boarded the Titanic for a visit to the US to take part in a peace congress at Carnegie Hall.
Carnegie Hall.
Very well known to you and I.
Up at the top of 6th Avenue there.
Yeah, at the request of President Taft, okay?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, what happened was, on April the 14th, 1912, that is the fateful night, throughout an 11-course meal, Steed told his fellow passengers about all the thrilling tales of his work, relaying his meetings with spiritualists, in particular a Mr. Penny, who had warned him not to board the Titanic because Mr. Penny knew that on board the Titanic was a box of the cursed mummy.
Right.
Amen Ra-Ra.
Amen Ra-Ra.
Yeah, Amen Ra-Ra.
How come the cursed mummy was allowed to be put on the ship if it was carrying a curse?
Well, no, the people who put it on the ship didn't know it was cursed. It was this guy who got on, who revealed that they were carrying a cursed mummy.
What I'm saying is, how did it curse anything else before it got on the ship?
Well, because if you remove any great mummy from the Egyptian sands in which it was buried, it's going to carry a curse. That's well known.
Well, it's well known up to a point. I mean, it's not actually well known. It's not necessarily the case, is it?
Oh, it is. The mummy was dug up from a tomb in Egypt in the late 19th century, and it cursed everyone who came into contact with it.
Let's hear the litany of things that happened to all of these people, then.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not sure I want to go that far back. But anyway...
no, because I always like hearing about that stuff.
Sorry?
I always like hearing about the things that happen.
The unlucky mummy was an ancient Egyptian artefact, right?
Rah-rah.
Now, the so-called cursed mummy case, it was a wooden case, a mummy board, or the inner lid of a coffin.
Yes.
And the female occupant had been unknown. Now, after dinner that night...
This is on the Titanic.
This is on the Titanic, 11-course dinner.
Yeah.
Stead retired to his cabin at 10:30 p.m. When the ship struck the iceberg, he helped several women and children into the lifeboat in an act typical of his generosity, courage and humanity, and then gave the life jacket he was wearing to another passenger. Now, the problem is, as a result of that gallantry, he drowned. He lost his life.
Okay.
And,
how is that the curse of the mummy?
Well, because
it's not, is it?
Well, he was the one who revealed the curse of the mummy to the other passengers.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is he revealed it.
So he was taken, wasn't he? He
No,
was taken.
No, because he reveals the curse of the mummy.
I know,
but actually...
But he can't reveal it to anybody else because he's dead.
No, but
he made sure, the gods of the water made sure they sucked him under the...
the reason that he's dead is because he gave his life jacket away and the ship sank. Yeah. Nothing to do with the curse of the mummy.
No, it was because the curse of the mummy had done his brain in and he made sure
one of the first stories I had to do when I was my first shift in Fleet Street,
yes.
I was handed this news agency copy from somewhere like Devon.
Right.
And I had to ring up the theatre production company that was putting on some kind of Tutankhamun play.
Oh, okay,
in some little playhouse in Exeter, right?
Yes.
And apparently what had happened the week before was that the lighting rig had fallen down and crippled one of the stage hands,
really? Cool.
who had to be taken off to hospital.
Yeah.
And then this week, another piece of equipment had become faulty, and somebody had broken their leg.
Yes.
And I had to call these people up and say, "Are you the subject of the Tutankhamun curse?"
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Which, of course, they said, "Oh no, I don't think so."
Yeah.
But we wrote that story.
That's right. Yeah.
And that was the way it went into the paper.
So they didn't think so, but they didn't really know.
No, they didn't really know.
Now, listen. What also backs this up is that from the same digging where old Amun-Ra was recovered.
For that is her name.
Another artefact was recovered.
Yeah.
Called the Menkor sarcophagus.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Menkor sarcophagus, many years earlier, in 1838, they were dug up, right? But a few years before the Titanic, the Menkor sarcophagus was being transported from Egypt, where it was found, to England, where it would be investigated by scientists and put on display.
Right.
And guess what?
What?
The ship carrying it went to the bottom of the sea in deep water near Cartagena.
Right.
Never to be seen again.
Hey? You mean Cartagena?
Cartagena, that's right. Never to be seen again.
You know, that was in the Romancing the Stone movie, wasn't it?
What?
Cartagena.
Cartagena, was it?
Cartagena in Colombia? Isn't it?
Well, no. I mean, if it was going from Egypt to England, why would it go to Colombia?
Well, is there another Cartagena?
Yeah, it's Cartagena. It's sunk in deep water near Cartagena, which is part of ancient Greece, isn't it? Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to have a look.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I mean, the one in South America is pronounced Cartagena.
Yeah, well, this is Cartagena in Europe,
Cartagena.
Mate. So there's another...
it's in Spain, there you go.
Yeah, it's Spain, yeah, Cartagena. So
Port city in the naval base in the Murcia region of southeast Spain. That's near La Manga.
Near La Manga, that's right, yeah. Well, I mean, the curse of the old mummies got that as well. So that's another great reason why the Titanic may have sunk.
Rubbish talks about the curse of the mummies. I mean, you must have been to the British Museum, right?
Yes.
And you've seen as I used to call them as a child, the mummy cases.
The mummy cases.
Where the mummies are lying in state, if you like, and you can look inside.
Yes.
And it's fascinating.
It is, yeah.
But I don't believe for a minute that there's anything to do with a curse. And if you look at all the Tutankhamun curses that people are supposed to have suffered from, there's quite an easily identifiable explanation for every single death.
Usually they will have released some sort of a spore that had been contained for 2,000 years. It's like why the white man killed off the Native Americans. They took diseases to America they didn't previously know.
But I mean, the curse of Tutankhamun is all about people not just dying from diseases, but dying in sort of mysterious circumstances. But they don't all die in mysterious circumstances, really. They just die.
Yeah, well, they die. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I mean... They will have got cancers and things from all the, the weird spores and things inside the... if you went into a room that had been locked for 2,000 years, which is essentially what the...
Well, like the one in
tombs,
your place.
No. Which is essentially what the tombs were, then, you would find yourself pretty susceptible to...
I would be quite freaked out, I think.
To the mange.
Have you been... The what?
The mange.
The mange?
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, that's like a disease.
Is it?
Yeah.
You mean the mange?
No. I mean
the mange.
The mange, yeah.
I mean, I've never been to the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, right? Have you been there?
No, I haven't been. No, yeah, it's too commercial now. What do I want to go there for?
Well, no, but I mean, it'd be quite cool to actually go inside one of these tombs.
Yes,
but as you say, too many people have already done it.
Yes, that's
but
right.
We'll talk about that. We've got UFOs to talk about coming up a bit later on in this hour as well. Loads more football too. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
You can never know what it's like. Your blood like winter freezes just like ice. And there's a cold and lonely light that shines from you. You wind up like the wreck you hide behind that mask you use. And did you think this fool could never win? Well, look at me, I'm coming back again. I got a taste of love in a simple way. And if you need to know while I'm still standing, you just fade away. Don't you know I'm still standing better than I ever did? Looking like
I've got some bad news for you, I'm afraid.
Yeah, go on.
Bill says this.
Yeah.
Since the curse strikes those that reveal its secret, stay away from the water, Porky.
What's that?
Well, you revealed the curse of the mummy.
Yes.
You're now going to be the subject of the curse.
Well, I don't think so, no.
It says stay away from the water because it might be the curse affects anyone that goes on water.
Well, I have to cross the water quite a lot when I go down to my place on the south coast.
Funny enough, Elton John's got an album called Madman Across the Water.
Does he?
Remember that? One of his earlier albums.
I don't know about that. Listen.
Go on, hang on. Dave says, Porky explained the curse of the mummy, which is now known as the Porky Jinx.
The Porky Jinx, that's right, yeah, part of it, yeah. Now, Elton John, of course, and we talked about Rod Stewart, two of the biggest pop stars in the world.
Indeed.
Now, how do they get records into the top 10 now, and how do we know who's top and all that kind of stuff?
Well,
because
there's still a chart, right,
Yeah.
which is still sort of run by the same people that have always run it.
Yes.
But it's now based more on downloads, I understand.
Right.
And I think they now have a separate chart for vinyl, a separate chart for, all sorts of different things. But the basic sort of top 40, which is still played out, I think, every Sunday on Radio 1,
right,
is still put together by the BFRB or whatever it is.
Well, here I've discovered how complicated it all is.
Yeah.
In a recent chart that was published, Ed Sheeran was at number 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Because, as we've tried to explain before, it's the rapidity with which the downloads are undertaken, not necessarily the volume of them.
That's where it comes to the podcast charts. Yeah.
Exactly. So it says here the charts are in crisis. This week, an American website from the Styles promo team was being heavily promoted. It shows the pixie-faced Harry Styles, formerly of One Direction, now a solo artist, lying on grass, his striped sleeve pulled winsomely over his hand, an artist in an arty Breton pop. However, this website has nothing to do with artistry and everything to do with data.
Right.
As it announces, it is mainly focused on promoting Harry Styles' projects. This week, it is mainly focusing on getting his new song, Sign of the Times, to number 1.
Right.
So the problem is they set up websites, newly created, just to promote the song.
Just to promote the song.
But more promote the artist, you said to me.
But is that not also resulting in more downloads, though? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm going to tell you. Among the techniques that are recommended are repeated listens on streaming services, gifting the song multiple times on iTunes, requesting the song on radio stations, and even using a virtual private network. Follow the how to use a VPN, virtual private network, to stream on Spotify. And the site shows overseas fans how to fool the digital musical service into thinking they're in the US or the UK and that their streams count towards listens needed for an official hit in the official charts in America and Britain.
That's weird, isn't it? Because, I had a conversation once with a producer that I know, who's done a lot of stuff works a lot with Robbie Williams and people like that.
Yes.
Because we were at one point trying to do a sort of charity-type song.
Yeah, right.
And get it into the charts. And he told me that 10,000 downloads would get it into the top 40.
Right, okay.
And, which is not a very big number, to be honest. And he said then, once you get it into the top 40, it has to be then played as part of the chart by the radio station.
Okay.
So then it sort of feeds upon itself.
Sure.
So then it moves up inside the top 40, maybe up to the top 20.
Sure.
So it's quite easy to manipulate.
Yes. It says that the one I've just told you about, the Harry Styles project, is not even managed by Styles or his representatives. The strategy is pursued by hard-nosed fans who run it to try and get Harry Styles to the top. So they're trying to do him a favour, you see what I mean? But it says week after week, a handful of artists, and Ed Sheeran apparently is the current one, the classical pop act Clean Bandit and the Rappers, Drake and Kendrick Lamar, they dominate the charts. In the third week of March, early this year, all but one song in the top 10 was by Ed Sheeran.
Yes, I remember that story.
All but one song in the top 10.
So he had 9 out of the top 10 songs.
That's right. All 16 songs from his third album, Divide, were in the top 20. Had it still existed that week, Top of the Pops would have featured nothing but the acoustic Boy Wonder jumping from one stage to another within the Top of the Pop studio.
Isn't that weird?
To perform yet another song.
Now, I don't know whether you remember the chart when it was around when you were younger, but I mean, certainly on a Sunday, I remember getting quite excited.
Oh, I loved it. 6 o'clock was it?
Coming out, something like that.
6 o'clock in the evening.
And I think they still do it on sort of late Sunday afternoon, early evening.
Yes.
But basically, I don't know whether that still happens. I don't hear my kids listening to the charts.
No.
They don't on a Sunday. They don't get all excited and go, "Oh, I've just got to find out what the new number one is."
Absolutely.
Because I don't think it works like that anymore.
No, I totally agree. So it's only as recently as 2014 it's changed, because what you and I have just been talking about, I remember on a Sunday evening when my mum was cooking, we used to have Sunday lunch, so she must have been cooking the tea or something like that. And, it
was kind of late afternoon, wasn't it?
Was it
maybe
4 o'clock or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But anyway, it says from 1952, when the chart was first set up, to 2014. I didn't realise it was that recently. The charts were straightforward. Positions were based on sales figures from a handful of record shops, and much later from, 2000 onwards, from digital retailers such as iTunes.
Yes.
Songs got to number one because a lot of people bought them and a lot of people cared. Each week the nation was united, this is the great point, by the anticipation of seeing the king or queen of pop perform on Top of the Pops.
Yes.
Now data from streaming services is included too. On June the 29th, 2014, listening figures from music streaming services such as Spotify and Apple Music counted towards the official singles chart for the first time. It was decided that 100 streams, which has since been increased to 150, were equivalent to one download or physical sale, and the first 30 seconds of a song being played would count as a stream.
Oh, really? That's interesting as well.
So 30 seconds of a song played 100 times gives you one sale.
Right, okay. But, I mean, you wouldn't think they'd have to go to those lengths, because you'd think, well, if you just had enough people downloading it and playing it, you think they could do that. I mean, I'm just looking at the iTunes chart at the moment, funnily enough, and looking at the comedy chart, which we've got an entry in. We're at number 14 with the Two Mics on the Record, which is our new podcast.
It certainly is,
if you want to go look for it. Number 14, the comedy chart, is pretty good. And then you go to all categories, right, which is every single podcast which is out there.
Yes.
And obviously it will appear somewhat further down.
Yeah.
But to be in the top 100 of that is pretty good. And I would say I think we are somewhere near the sort of number 45 or something in that.
Yes.
And then we're also in the sports chart, which is with the Two Mics podcast from this show.
Right.
Which pops in at something like usually sort of around about, anywhere from 12 to 20. Oh, it's in at 26 at the moment.
Right.
But then tomorrow morning, when our podcast comes out,
that's right,
it will move up the chart.
Yes, because
this was the argument we had with the sports bar when they were saying, we were the most downloaded podcast.
Yeah.
It was like, well, it's
rubbish.
Not. It's
not.
not. Because the figures are not compatible. And it's very confusing because it's like, well, what is the point of the chart?
Yes.
I wonder what the point of the iTunes podcast chart is. It gets people to kind of be introduced to new podcasts.
Yeah, maybe.
Because the more people that download your podcast, it gets in the new and noteworthy section, which is where ours is.
Sure.
And lots of people then go and look at it.
But these massive fan clubs, I mean, like the lady who sadly was the singer in Manchester.
Ariana Grande, yeah.
She's got like 45 million
45
followers.
million.
On Twitter. Now, so if a group of Harry, what's his name?
Harry Styles
fans get together.
And he's got millions as well.
I think he's about 17 million or something like that. So all they've got to do is generate traffic for Harry, and it goes up. Now, in the old days, they would literally have to have gone out to all these record shops.
And that's what they used to do,
and buy them over the counter.
Yeah,
but, I mean, that's very expensive.
Yeah.
So what about this as another development?
Also, surely it's kind of counterproductive if you're actually physically buying the stuff. Because you're not then getting any money from it.
No, you're not getting anything at all.
If you're the organisation that's trying to screw up the chart by buying stuff, then you're not making any money.
But there's another development in this, you see. This is how I keep in touch with these things, reading my musical journals and all this. Now, what's going to happen next is this. This is a report about Amazon. It says Amazon left a trail of boarded-up bookshops and music retailers in its wake as it revolutionised the way we shop online. And we agree with that. Bookshops have a hard time because people buy them from Amazon. All kind of stuff.
Right.
It says now it has the live music industry in its sights. The online giant has launched a live music business in the UK, running and promoting its own gigs, so its own concerts.
Amazon?
Yeah, wow. Amazon, exclusively for Amazon Prime customers.
Yes.
In an attempt to attract more people to the premium subscription service.
That makes sense.
Customers who pay £79 a year or £7.99 a month for Amazon Prime services, including online video and same-day delivery, will be able to buy tickets to exclusive London performances by artists as huge as Blondie, Alison Moyet and Katie Malua this summer.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's going to be something that will work well. We should mention, by the way, that Ariana Grande is returning to this country to do a benefit concert this weekend. And they've got quite a stellar lineup for it in Manchester. All the proceeds are going to go to the victims of the,
Take That
of the bombing. Well, Ariana Grande is joined by Justin Bieber, Katy Perry, Coldplay, Take That, Niall Horan, Miley Cyrus, Pharrell Williams.
And where's this going to take place?
It's in Manchester.
No, is it going to be the Etihad?
I'm not absolutely certain where it's going to be.
Right.
But I will be able to tell you that
Isn't Liam
shortly.
Gallagher singing tonight in Manchester?
I think he has done. done.
Yeah, I think he has done,
It's going to be screened on the BBC as well.
Right, OK.
And so tickets can be got for it. Yeah, it is at the Emirates, you're right. It's at Old Trafford Cricket Ground, sorry.
Old Trafford Cricket Ground.
Old Trafford Cricket Ground.
Right, OK.
And there's rumours that Madonna and Eminem may be turning up as well.
Amazing, that.
So that'll be terrific, because she was criticised wrongly, I think, by some people.
Well, of course she had to leave the area immediately.
Yeah, because also she would have been advised, I'm sure, by her people, we got to get out of here. We don't know what's going on. We get on a plane, we go back to Florida. You know, we're not coming anywhere near this place because it's a bit dangerous.
And if she'd have turned up at the hospital 2 or 3 days later, she would have been accused of trying to cash in on a tragedy.
Exactly.
And she was
you can't
right
win
to stay
sometimes.
away.
Yeah, I think so. And I think she's right to now come back, and I think she's absolutely done all the right things in the right order, to be honest. I think criticism of her is very unfair. This is Talk Sport. Coming up, we're going to talk UFOs.
On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. Talk Sport.
And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh, no, no, no. I'm a rocket man, burning out his fuse out there.
A bit more Elton John before you there.
Bit more Elton John, that's great. We'll have a bit of Ed Sheeran next, because he could be in the top 17 positions in the chart.
How about this from somebody called Patrick? He says, has Porky been watching Night at the Museum box set? Glad he's not a mummy. It would take 2 weeks wrapping him up. Hashtag plank.
I quite liked the first Night at the Museum.
Yeah.
That was Zoolander guy, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. And also...
Mickey Rooney, believe it or not.
Mickey Rooney was in it?
Yeah. Really? He was the third overnight watchman when they were laid off, and Zoolander guy Ben Stiller got the job, and then they all came to life overnight.
And wasn't Steve Coogan in it as well?
He wasn't the one I saw, I don't think. No, Robin Williams was.
That's right.
He was General Custer, wasn't he? Sitting on a horse or something like that.
Yeah, very possibly, yeah.
I thought it was quite good. Now, whilst we're still talking about records, right, I'm going to repeat
Well, we've got to speak to Cheryl, who's here waiting patiently for us.
I want to speak to Cheryl.
Hang on to your hat there on the record front.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to Cheryl Costa, who is the author of UFO Sightings Desk Reference, because statistics are compiled in this new book, right, using databases across 2 of the world's biggest organisations.
Yeah.
And apparently there's been more UFO sightings logged within recent times than ever before. So we're going to find out from Cheryl precisely why that is. Cheryl, very good morning to you. Very good evening to you where you are.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to put this book together, and then we'll kind of explore exactly what's in it, shall we?
Okay, I write a newspaper column, have been doing it for about 3.5 years, called New York Skies. It's about UFO sightings in New York State, and I would report stories that people said they saw. And during the course of the last 3.5 years, at one point I was adding up a lot of local and regional statistics. And I realized nobody else in what they call the UFO community was doing such a thing. So I went ahead and did a statistical study for New York State. This is back in 2015.
Right.
And we identified some strange patterns none of the investigators in New York knew anything about. So my spouse, Linda, and I both basically said, over a pint, we basically were talking and said, hey, why don't we do the whole United States? You know, it would take us a year. It took us 16 months, actually.
Okay.
And we crunched all the numbers for all 50 states in the district.
And you saw your first UFO at the age of 12, I'm told.
Yes, it did.
And what was it that you saw then?
We saw a sphere, clear blue sky. It was late August. We saw a sphere parked out in the western sky. And if you want an idea how big it was, hold your arm out and look at your little fingernail.
Okay.
It's that big.
Right.
And it just hung there for 20 minutes. And my mother pulled the car over and explained it to us kids what it might be. And it might be a balloon. It might be a lot of things. And they said it might be people from another planet, you know. And we were fascinated. And we watched the thing for a little while, and when it finally decided to leave, it was like something you'd see in a Star Trek movie. It dashed off and like, poof, gone.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah,
it stayed with me all my life.
Yeah, it's a sort of thing you don't forget, isn't it, Cheryl? Cheryl, what is your theory as to then why people from other planets don't make contact with Earthlings?
Oh, they do. Okay, first thing, I wrote a book of statistics. I count them and add them up. These are not backed up by numbers, the answers I'm going to give you. I believe they're already here.
Right.
I talked to people who have had contact with them, And it's actually, there's a man that was on our television program over here called 60 Minutes. There's plenty of evidence here if you're willing to look really closely and see it. And our book was partly an effort to share that evidence.
Yeah, but it's not a public accepted phenomenon that we're in contact with aliens, is it? What I mean is, when is an alien going to land and say, right, let's have a press conference? I'll sit here and the world's television cameras, I'm serious.
Yeah, why not? I mean, why wouldn't they?
Yeah, come and talk to me and I'll tell you what superpowers we can bring to you Earthlings. Why isn't that happening?
Well, okay. We'd probably try if we tried to land on the White House lawn. They'd probably get shot down before they had a chance. But
presumably they're such an advanced society, they'd have all sorts of force shields to stop themselves being destroyed.
Or they could just land. Or they could just land in a field.
Land on Venice Beach.
The problem is they have had contact with world governments for probably 70 years.
Right.
Okay. And the contact has always been kind of like you saw in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a very secret thing off someplace.
Yes.
With a limited number of people, and they don't share it with the rest of us. And from what I hear these days, from what the people who are working with the Close Encounters 5 protocols, is that they want more contact with us, and they are inviting people to reach out and touch them with their consciousness. So if you know how to meditate, it's possible to reach out and touch them, from what I've been told. In fact, I just got done writing a couple articles about it.
Yeah, and have you been able to collect any data on the contact, as it were? Because obviously, with the world governments keeping these things very secretive, and even when they open, I mean, as they do in this country and in the US of A, they open up sort of, government secret files after 35, 40 years. There's never anything in there about them. Is there any way of collecting the data in terms of what's been going on?
Well, what's happened is that since 1968, the Air Force here has not collected data. Because somebody did a report to Congress and said there was nothing to be learned from this. So that shut it all down. And, of course, since the late 40s, early 50s, there's been a psychological warfare program, basically, to tell everybody, if you see one of these things, you'll be labeled and ridiculed and called crazy and all this. So there's been this cultural overtone in this country. Say two people outside, and one said, wow, did you see that? And the other one said, no, and you didn't either. That's the mentality we've had. People who've been reporting to the UFO. Okay, now why are we seeing such high numbers right now? In one word, the internet. See, up until about the mid '80s, the only way this stuff got reported, especially since the Air Force was out of the business, at least officially, people were faxing them in to people who were collecting the data, the early MUFON organization, things like that. Fax them in, call them in on telephone recording devices, cut out newspaper clips, things like this. And that's how it was reported. In the early 80s, people started having access to CompuServe and the early America Online, bulletin board systems with their home computers. That gradually pumped up to the dial-up services in the 90s and started to get into internet in the late 90s. And by 2000, most people had access to some form of broadband, whether at home or at work.
Yeah, but Cheryl, that's accumulating information, but surely another answer as to why we're seeing more and more is that the technology with which we spot UFOs must be getting greater and greater every year. In the Middle Ages, a guy couldn't sort of hollow out the middle of a branch and then look up in the sky and see a UFO, whereas, the sophistication of telescopes, radio telescopes and things like that must be getting greater, every day.
Well, yes, but the thing is the average person who reports them, okay, the thing to remember, only 1 in 10 people actually reports what they see. Yeah. That's something we discovered here, okay?
Right.
Okay,
well, that's probably because people fear they'll be branded.
Out here with starlight scopes.
Yeah,
you know. But the average person, the average person who sees these things are people going out for a smoke or going out to walk the dog.
Yeah.
And having a smoke.
And so they might be taking a picture.
Person who reports one.
They might be taking a picture on their iPhone. I mean, I see that your list of states to spot a UFO has California very much at the top of it. But what you've seen is that there's been
most people's minds in California are usually bent by substances, which
I think that's a bit of a generalisation.
No, it's not.
No, let's not go there. No, it's a function of leisure time and the latitude's weather. In the northern states of the United States, July and August are the high season. As you move down, we discovered this laying out the book. In the middle states in the United States, the middle latitudes, that bump starts flattening out, and when you get down to the deep south and into the southern part of Southern California, it's statistically flat. There's a quiescent amount of sightings there all the time because the weather's nice.
Yeah, and apparently
it's
something like 4 times as many sightings in, say, the last 10 years.
Yeah,
more recently now than there were back in 2001. So it's not just about the technology, you're saying. It's because people are seeing more of these things.
Well, okay, there is an upward trend in the sightings, but there's also what we call an artifact of reporting because more people had the ability, and it came in like 3 waves, in the early 2000s, the middle 2000s, and then probably the most stable numbers we've had are probably been in the last 8 years. And but even then, if you draw a line through it very carefully, you can see that there's still a very careful upward trend.
Yeah, but Cheryl,
I monitored that trend with both reporting services.
Okay, thank you. But Cheryl, could it be that aliens are massing for not an invasion of Earth, but a presence on Earth, a public presence of what we've just talked about? If we're seeing more and more and more of them, are they massing in the galaxies above Earth, ready to descend upon Earth and make themselves known to us?
I know one astronomer who saw hundreds of them up above us. But, okay, are they massing to come down and see us? I dare say you probably have ridden on the subway with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you think so? What, Men in Black type thing?
They're already here. They're already here. One guy that talked to one of them, he said, "When are you people coming down?" And the extraterrestrial said, "We've been among you for years."
Yeah.
You've got to look at us.
Can we, I mean, if we're in London, for example, can we spot these people as they are moving among us? I mean, what do they look like? Is there any giveaways?
Well, several species look very much like you and me, except maybe they're a little taller or maybe they're a little paler, but they pretty much look like us. There's one particular species referred to as the Nordics. They look pretty Swedish, you know, and so those are the ones that really look like us. Then supposedly there are others who run around, but they cloak themselves, kind of like you saw in the movie Men in Black. You know, they kind of cloak themselves, or they only go out on the street to go shopping at night, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's all very interesting. I just need the evidence, Cheryl, to believe it. When is one of them going to get knocked down by an automobile? And when we take his clothes off, we find that he's a machine, not a human. Let
me give you the one where there is evidence. Okay, there's a guy over in Switzerland by the name of Billy Meir, and he's been shooting pictures of these things since the early 70s. It's almost been not reported here in the United States. And if anybody has the most believable evidence, it's this little one-armed guy in Switzerland. He's got hundreds and hundreds of pictures and video and film footage of these things.
Okay. Well, I've never seen it.
I haven't seen it, but we'll go and check it out. Listen, Cheryl, thank you very much indeed. Cheryl Costa there talking to us about the increased number of UFO spotting, but also telling us that there are aliens walking amongst
us. He says you see them on the tube. Possible. So I go on the London Tube. Next time I'm on the London Tube, I'm going to look up and down, scan the carriage. And well, I mean, he said, they're a little taller, a little paler. Well, my nephew Tom is 6'4".
Is he pale?
He's not pale, but he's in a family that don't have anybody else over 6 foot.
Is that right?
I think you have a similar situation.
Well, my son, who's 22, is very tall.
Right, yeah.
And he's not. There's nobody in my family who's as tall as him.
Yeah.
Or on the other side.
Yeah, you see, it wouldn't surprise me at all if your son turned out to be an alien.
Well, you say he's an alien?
Well,
I was at his birth.
He could be, yeah. But
I saw him being born.
How do you know his body hasn't been taken over by an alien since? You haven't seen a lot of him.
Well, he does live in California.
That's what I'm saying. It's all adding up. California, where they're all wackos.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you produce a son who's tall and pale.
Yeah. He's not particularly pale, actually.
We've just heard from an expert aliens could be amongst us, and that's what they look like.
Yeah.
So this is all...
I think you may have lost the plot over the mummy scenario.
Well, I'm not losing the plot, mate. I'm trying to put the facts of the situation together. You could be the head of a family that's got an alien in it, that's for sure.
I don't think so. Here's one from Neil. He says, calling occupants of interplanetary craft.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
By the Carpenters.
Calling occupants of interplanetary most extraordinary craft.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room. And now my bedsheets smell like you.
This is Ed Sheeran.
Is that Ed Sheeran?
One of his songs,
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is pretty good.
Everybody loves Ed Sheeran,
Everybody does love him, yeah. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of Ed Sheeran's music, I have to say.
No, I'm not.
Now, quite a few people have been a bit dismissive of our last guest, Cheryl Costa.
Yes.
I'm just going to put her Twitter address out. Here's one from somebody called Dennis. He says, I'm a Yank. Get this crackpot UFO yank off the air.
Yeah.
Hashtag bonkers. Well,
saying there's hundreds of them flying around and all that.
That's not fair because, I mean, some people know more about this stuff than we do. And the idea that there is nothing out there, to me, is ridiculous, right?
Well, down at my place on the coast, right, I can sometimes get up in the middle of the night and stare out the window, and I will see a lot of movement in the sky.
Yes.
Now, that's for a number of reasons. Firstly, there could be ships out at sea firing flares. There could be helicopters flying around because there's military bases nearby. There could be aircraft flying over. There could be a meteorite. You've got to remember on the coast, you know, the weather changes quite rapidly between land and sea.
It does.
And all that kind of stuff. But I've never seen a UFO or never seen anything that I thought was a UFO. It's just movement in the sky because the sky is a massive place. And when you see a movement in the sky, you know, when you...
Yeah, but I mean, you technically are seeing a UFO because if you can't identify it, it's an unidentified flying object.
All right, fair enough. But what I'm saying is, if you, realise that the closest star that you could ever get to, when you say, you know, twinkle, twinkle, little star... what's the thing? Twinkle, twinkle, little star. How I love you, how you are.
No, I wonder what you are.
What you are.
Up above the sky so high.
Yeah.
Up above the stars so high like a diamond in the sky.
That's it, yeah. Now, if you decide to set off in a craft that was currently made by man, the fastest could be about, like, twice the speed of sound or something, and headed for that star, you'd still be flying towards it in a year's time.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is that if they are UFOs... then they're so extraordinarily far away anyway that it's irrelevant.
Well, possibly. How about this from Andy, who says, the truth is out there, spooky. Surely this was the perfect opportunity for Porky to reveal himself as Planet Zog's emissary.
No, I'm not, actually. I've never been to Planet Zog, but, I wouldn't mind if it's a freebie. Now, what I was going to say is just turn the subject for a bit.
Yeah.
In the summer months coming up, of course, you will take your lads out somewhere on a sunny day, like a Saturday or Sunday, and you will hear the jingle of the chimes on top of an ice cream van.
Possibly.
And then you will...
Do you know what? I had an ice cream last... I think it was last Friday.
From an ice cream van?
Not from an ice cream van, from a cafe down in on the promenade.
The coast. Well, I love that.
I picked Oliver up from school.
Yes.
Took the dog and him to the beach.
Yes.
We got a 99 each.
Lovely.
And the dog got one as well, without the chocolate.
Lovely.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, I love those ice creams.
But also with ice cream, if it's that hot of a day and you just eat it and you just think this is the perfect piece of food for me right now.
Yes, I totally agree. Now the problem is, have you ever seen, like, a new or modern ice cream van?
Yeah. Funnily enough, there's an ice cream van that goes up and down my street in London.
Right.
In the summer months, and every day at 5 o'clock, you hear the sound of the bell, and it stops pretty much outside my apartment.
Yeah, and how old or new is it?
It looks about... I couldn't say, but
can't you tell from the registration plate?
I've never looked at the registration.
You have a look.
But it doesn't look particularly modern.
No, exactly, because I don't think there are any modern ones. I think they're, although they're a great part of British life, long. But anyway, the point I'm making is that all these ice cream vans that have been built so far in this country are built with diesel engines, but of the very worst sort, according to a report I've just seen.
So they pump out a lot of foul air.
Well, they're very dangerous for children to be in their presence. I mean, look, I'm not one of these, crazy sort of clean air fanatics and all that kind of stuff, but I do accept this report, which says diesel-engined ice cream vans are spewing out dangerously high levels of a deadly pollutant, which is especially harmful to young children.
Blimey.
The engines are kept running, which they are.
In order to keep the stuff cold, right?
While the vans are parked to power their fridges. and that leaves queuing families to breathe in a pollutant that can trigger asthma attacks after just a few minutes.
Yeah.
They have been responsible, it's thought, for thousands of deaths each year.
Well, you see, this is where I start to ask the question, where do they get that from?
Yeah.
Where do they get that from?
Yeah, well...
I mean, how do they know somebody dies of respiratory disease that it was because they were standing in too many queues for an ice cream?
Well,
how do they know that?
Absolutely. But anyway, this report I'm reading is based on research. It says in Great Yarmouth, even on a windy day with a new diesel van, the level of air around the van was 1.5 times the safe limit of what the World Health Organization recommends, OK?
Right.
Now, it says that known as black carbon, the soot-like substance is particularly dangerous for babies and stunts the growth of children's lungs, as well as causing cancer and dementia. I mean, this is very extreme stuff. Our reporters, this is from the people who made the investigation, OK?
Yeah.
In the journal that I'm reading it from, found families being exposed to levels of black carbon that were more than 40 times the limit recommended by the World Health Organization.
Right.
The readings...
So the World Health Organization is now going to start outlawing ice cream vans.
Well, they're certainly going to mount an investigation.
They'd like to, wouldn't they?
Yeah. The readings were so high that a leading expert in children's health warned even a one-off exposure for 10 minutes could cause serious problems for a youngster with existing breathing problems. Professor Jonathan Grigg, head of paediatric respiratory medicine at Queen Mary University of London, I mean, this guy's a very highly qualified doctor, said, certainly in the case of a child with asthma, there's a risk of exposure to black carbon at these levels that have been recorded could bring on an attack.
I'm sure there is, but the trouble is, how are you going to get around that? I mean, ideally, what you would like to see is electric ice cream vans.
Yeah, you would,
Which, charge themselves up at a point, drive around a few neighbourhoods, sell a few ice creams, and everything is powered by the battery that is charged from before you go out.
I agree. The one constant you hear from an ice cream van is the engine running all the time, don't you? It has to. And even when the chap is, in the back of his van, he's got his windows open, he's leaning out, handing you an ice lolly or something like that, you're constantly aware of the engine running.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing that you're very much aware of if you walk around in London, the centre of London in particular, is the number of buses that are sitting there.
Yes.
One after another, sitting just idling in traffic which is not moving.
And usually with nobody on them.
Usually with nobody on them.
And the reason
I know some of them are supposedly green buses.
Yeah.
But they're all pumping out something, you know what I mean?
The reason they're sitting in queues and going nowhere is because of the presence of the super cycle highways, which are painted blue, and which take up 1/3 of the road space, and which nobody uses for about 22 and a half hours a day.
For quite a considerable time of the day,
I mean, when I go home every night, I have to cross across a cycle super high lane to turn left.
Yes.
Off the Kennington Road to go south down through Brixton.
And do you find yourself having to check to see if anybody's coming, though?
No, because the lights stop you going across that cycle super highway.
Yeah, but even so, when you're turning, do you not have to double check?
Well, why should I? Because they're controlled by lights, and in fact, the cyclists on the super cycle highway, who don't exist, by the way, I've never seen one.
Well, they're busy in the morning and in the evening.
I've never seen one when I've been going home at sort of 4:30. I've never seen one when I've been coming in about 11 at night. They just don't exist. But they have their own little symbol traffic lights which show bicycles, red or green, showing whether they can go through or stop.
But I'm always conscious of the fact that a lot of them don't actually stop at a red light and they'll just keep going.
Well,
you don't want to run one over, even if it's not something you plan to do.
I haven't seen that yet, but that's why buses are sitting in queues of traffic going nowhere, spewing out fumes, because we do not have free-flowing traffic in the centre of London anymore. And but
that's what I'm saying. We keep getting
pretty
told.
sure it's the same in most major cities now.
But we keep getting told by the powers that be, in the form of the Mayor's office and various others, that we are now in a position of having toxic air in the City of London, and that something has to be done about it. But one of the reasons we have it is because they've created so much congestion.
That's right.
Right? They've got too many buses. They've got too many trucks because they don't stop them coming in. And it's their fault.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
No.
And so what they're hoping is that they'll get a critical break of 20 years, which will be between people saying, OK, I'm giving up my car and taking up my bike, and dissing their cars and taking up their bikes. That's never going to happen.
No.
People have to be more efficient than riding around on a bike.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the economy would collapse.
Absolutely right.
I keep telling people this. Nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening to you. But that's because they've been so used to hearing such a lot of old cobblers from you for
Rubbish.
years that when you finally say something important, they've already been, sent to bed by the whole Cry Wolf Brigade.
Not the case
now,
at all.
let me give you some breaking news, just to bring you. There's apparently a standoff going on at Orlando International Airport reports of a gunman in the car rental area. No suggestion at the moment that it's anything related to terrorism, but you know these things happen in America.
A lot of cases in
all
America.
The time. The police are saying that he is, if you're worried about anybody over there, the police are saying that he is contained in the car rental area.
Right.
Okay. And that's level 1 of the airport.
Right.
Orlando International Airport tweeted out, incident ongoing involving man with weapon in terminal level 1A side rental car area. Police are on the scene. Area contained. Minimal impact to operations. So it means that things are going on as normal, I guess, at Orlando Airport. But there's an awful lot of police cars there. So if you happen to be anywhere around Orlando Airport, by all means call us and tell us what's going on.
Please.
The number, of course, is 08717 22 33 4. Now, we've got Porkyvision coming up in the next hour. We're going to look at some of the other stories that are going on, because we're not very far away now, just over a week until the election.
That's right, absolutely.
We might need to sort of sort of wrap up a few election stories.
That's right.
To let people know, which, of course, we can't do with any bias whatsoever, because we are prevented by rules from Ofcom to tell you which way to vote, prevented from giving too much prominence to one party over another.
That's right.
All we can really do is tell you what's been going on. You may know that already, but we will do so coming up in the next hour. This is TalkSport. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. I've got this from somebody called Squirrels. I'm about 150 miles from Orlando International, but the only thing I can tell you is MG's Bobcat Bob impression is great. Thank you very much indeed.
Bobcat Bob. I wonder what Bobcat Bob's doing now since he left England.
Not sure. Somebody sent me a tweet, actually, about something that they'd read about him, but I didn't actually follow the details of it, the full details, so I'm not really sure.
Should have paid a bit more attention.
I should have done. I think I was in the midst of doing something else. Ricky says this, you think grassroots football's in bad shape now, let the government get involved and the game will be ruined.
Yes, that's
right. This is off the back of your suggestion that maybe money should be passed down from all this incredible amount of money.
Yeah, that's right,
But tell us about this incredible story that's in the Times this morning, because the headline says shock poll predicts Tory losses. This is things going at 100 miles an hour in the opposite direction. Isn't it?
It's amazing. It says a YouGov poll estimates hung Parliament. And that Mrs May, who obviously inherited the Prime Ministership and the keys to number 10 because of the implosion of Mr Cameron's government once the Brexit poll was lost, has decided to go to the country to get her own majority, but according to this poll, it's backfired and she'll get less seats, not more.
Which would mean there will be a hung Parliament.
So,
which nobody has up until this moment said. I mean, it started off, with about a month ago, saying that this is going to be such a big one-sided operation that the problem the Tories will have is getting enough people out to vote, because they'll all think it's going to be, as you say, a landslide.
145-seat majority was the original estimates, and then, some shockingly, allegedly inept performances by people on the Labour side who didn't know the cost of their policies and all that. And then some allegedly shocking performances by the Tories in actually laying out their manifesto.
Well, they've made a complete dog's breakfast of it, you'd have to say.
Well, it seems to it, because a series of U-turns that were then put in, and there's a huge vote in the grey area. That is people over 60 years of age, because we're all living much longer.
Right.
And people are frightened that, hang on, when I become infirm, I'm going to have to sell the house that I live in now and go and live in a home, and I'll have no money of my own.
Right.
Shouldn't I be able to keep the home that I've had all my life, and I've paid my taxes all my life, and not have to sacrifice every single penny I've got?
And do you know what they've done really is to cause a great deal of confusion amongst those people, because I don't think anyone in their heart of hearts actually now knows what the policy is.
No, nobody knows what the policy is.
They've made it so confusing that it's not clear whether or not you get to keep some of it, whether you have to sell all of it, whether you can give some of it to your children. I mean, it's a mad thing that they've done.
The minute that it was floated, and that's what they do with these policies, they float them to see what public reaction's like. That, actually, there will be no cap on the amount of money you will individually have to spend on your own care when you get older.
Right.
And that might mean you'll have to sell your house and your children might have to pay for you and all that kind of... Wow, the polls went into kind of reverse. So then a U-turn policy comes in. Oh, no, there will be a cap. There will be a cap, and that cap's £100,000,
right.
you know.
Or will there be? And then we're not sure, because that might have been damaging and we might have to replace that.
Absolutely. Whereas the other side, Labour, don't seem to have actually spoken on this issue at all.
Right.
They've decided to keep mum on it, or keep stum on it, I should say, because it's so controversial. But the other one...
But then Corbyn's had his own problems as well, hasn't he? Because he had trouble yesterday trying to explain
childcare.
Yet another situation regarding forthcoming a financial figure, which he couldn't get his hands on.
What was amazing is that Diane Abbott originally did that interview with Nick Ferrara at LBC.
Yes.
And she is going to be the prospective Home Secretary.
And that was all about the police, wasn't it?
It's all about policing and putting, 3,000 more police officers on the beat and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And when asked to cost it, simply didn't have a clue.
No, just came out with all the wrong figures.
All the wrong figures, all the wrong announcements, never got it quite straight. Yeah. Said that, I'd have a lot of interviews this morning and I got confused and all that kind of stuff.
But she then went to other places to be interviewed subsequently and made the same error.
Yeah, but the thing is, that was over 2.5 weeks ago. Now, the point is, if you see somebody in the shadow cabinet, particularly if that person, Diane Abbott, has had a romantic history with Jeremy Corbyn decades ago, when they were young party members and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they went off to East Germany on a motorbike.
Yeah, that's right. If you've seen a flounder into an interview and be emasculated by a very sharp presenter because you don't have your figures, you would presumably then say to everybody, listen, whenever any of us go in an interview, we must have the figure for the policy.
Yeah.
Mr. Corbyn goes into one yesterday about childcare and he's faffing about, tapping on his laptop, I can find that figure. And the interviewer, who's a lady called Emma Barnett
on Radio
from Womentower, said, you don't know it, do you? Yeah, I do. Well, where is it then? Well, I don't know, but I'm going to try and find it. She's now since been subject to sort of anti-Semitism accusations.
She's been attacked for being a Zionist, supposedly.
Yeah, Sports Jeremy Corbyn levelled anti-Semitic abuse to the BBC presenter yesterday after questioning the Labour leader left him floundering.
Right.
Which is, all the tasteful sort of side of electioneering and campaigning and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, they both, to me, both sides and major parties are blundering around.
Well, I mean, it was only Sunday as well that Diane Abbott did another interview with Andrew Marr, at which point she was asked about her views on the IRA.
Yes.
Because she had said in the past that a victory for the IRA and a united Ireland would be a great victory against the British state and all this kind of thing.
That's right.
And her answer rather sort of, I suppose you might say, trivialised the question.
Well, trite,
because she said, well, I've had a different hairstyle since then. I used to have an afro 34 years ago, and my views have changed as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, that's not really good enough.
It was ludicrous. And since then, she's had the mickey taken out of her with people resurrecting pictures of her 35 years ago with an afro haircut, making her look like a sort of empty-headed student rather than a serious politician.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're both, as you quite rightly say, the Tories and the Labour Party have both been woeful at getting their message across and explaining what their policies are. I mean, I was only hearing yesterday that one of the policies which is kind of hidden in the Labour Party manifesto is all about the difference in council tax that's going to happen if they get in, which is basically to look at the cost of your house,
absolutely,
which will punish people obviously who have got a house that's worth quite a lot of money, but it may punish people who have, say, inherited a house, or who have got a house and they're just running it because they've had it for years and years and years in the family. But if it's got a big garden, or if it's in a part of London which is incredibly expensive, they're going to be hit with thousands of pounds in taxes.
I will be hit by a massive council tax rise down on the coast because one of the things that you'll be taxed on is the view.
Yeah.
And I've got a spectacular view. I look over Portsmouth Harbour.
Yeah.
So I will be told, well, you're lucky you've got to pay for that. I think that's, a really different sort of political view that's being entered into the thinking. What I think always happens here, and this is perhaps why Mrs. Thatcher and Tony Blair were very, very good at what they did, is that when you're going into an election campaign, you've got to know your own mind because you're surrounded by advisors.
Yes.
And this person
and
says...
sometimes their advice is not always right.
This is exactly what I'm saying. And this guy says do that, and that lady says do that, and this cabal here of advisors says do that, and this think tank here, and this outside PR person like Lord Bell. And you've got to be able to, separate the wheat from the chaff and have your own mind. Now, both Mrs. May and Jeremy Corbyn have advisors who would like to steer them, violently in one direction or another.
Yeah.
Mrs. May, one of her closest allies is Fiona Hill. She's an old journalistic colleague, isn't she?
From Daily Record in Scotland, although I never actually knew her in Scotland, but apparently she's quite a fearsome
quite fearsome. Now, she's a joint head of staff for Mrs. May, but there's another guy there whose name, I'm sorry, doesn't immediately come to me. He's known as Rasputin because he's got a long, straggly beard.
Rasputin.
Yeah, he's a working boy from Dudley in the West Midlands and all that. And, Fiona Hill puts one point of view forward, he puts the other point of view forward. There's a battle going on amongst the advisors, and Mrs. May has to put a foot down and say, this is what I'm going to do. Now, Jeremy Corbyn's got exactly the same problem.
Yeah.
Jeremy Corbyn...
Well, he's got two different tides inside his own party, hasn't he?
Of course he has. But one of them is Seamus Milne, who is a highly educated man.
Guardian man.
The Guardian man and a distinguished journalist and comes from a prosperous background.
Yeah.
But he's a left-wing commie.
Yeah.
So, type of a guy advising Jeremy Corbyn. Now, Jeremy Corbyn's views are quite well known, but Mr. Milne apparently is more extreme than him. And then on the other side of the party, you've got, the straggling tail of Blairism
and
all
like
that.
Chuka Ramuna and all that lot.
Yeah. Of Blairism.
They're all sitting there waiting to see if Corbyn loses massively, then they'll be ready to take over the party.
Exactly.
But what his people are saying is that unless he loses by a massive amount, which is not that likely,
he's going to
stay. Theresa May, guess what she called him yesterday?
No.
Half-baked.
Who?
Theresa May called Jeremy Corbyn half-baked.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, dear me.
She's obviously been listening to this show.
She has.
Apparently, she's saying that if he was the leader, he would be alone and naked in the Brussels negotiating chamber.
Yes, I heard her say that.
That's not something I'm looking forward to seeing, to be honest. Anyway, that's what's been happening in politics today. We're just over a week away from the general election. It looks as though it's going to get nastier. It looks as though it's going to be closer than everybody thought.
We're going to be here on
the night, bringing you all of the news as it comes in. It's going to be very exciting. This is TalkSport.
Yeah.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
I'm struck by a haunted social scene, just a pawn I played by a dominating queen. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, damn it, listen to it good. I'm sleeping with myself tonight, saving time, thank God my music's still alive.
This is that song, Someone Saved My Life Tonight. You know it, right?
Hey?
This is Someone Saved My Life Tonight.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
I think it was a single for Elton John, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, okay, yeah, I would say
that's the one that's on Captain Fantastic I was telling you about earlier.
Yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
How about this from Tracy?
Yeah.
It said, how about the floundering of Fallon on Channel 4 or Cleverly on BBC 5 Live, Hammond on HS2 costings, Gove on averages? So, she's basically saying, I think, that almost everyone that you can think of has made a dog's breakfast or whatever it is they're meant to be doing.
That's right.
Message here from Kevin and Mario. Can you please give us a shout-out? We're making our way up to Smithfield Market. Kevin and Mario.
When are they making their way?
I presume now.
Now?
Yeah, as they're listening to us.
What are they going to Smithfield Market for?
Well, I presume they've got business there.
Well, I'll tell you what, don't the boozers there open even earlier than Borough Market?
They very possibly do.
They open about 4 a.m.
I used to go to a place called the Cock Tavern.
Yeah, that's right, I remember that.
It's just off Farringdon.
Yes.
Round the back of Smithfield.
Yes.
And they did a very nice breakfast there.
Near the steps down to the underground car park?
I think it was,
yes, that's right,
I think it was.
Yes, that's right,
Smithfield, the meat market, is still going as a meat market, even though it's now become quite a trendy area.
That's right.
Lots of good restaurants there as well.
It's a great place to go. You can smell the fresh meat and all that kind of stuff. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Absolutely right.
I tell you who's passed away, by the way. An old mate of ours, the corrupt dictator of Panama, known as Pineapple Face.
Oh, what, Noriega?
Manuel Noriega.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, if you'd said to me, is he still alive? I would have said, actually, I'm not sure.
No,
I haven't heard of him for a while.
He's just died.
He was famous, I remember, for being holed up in the presidential palace.
Yes.
And the Americans put down, when they went down there to get him out, they put up loads and loads of speakers and started blasting Guns N' Roses at him.
That's right.
And Metallica and all sorts of music, because they said this is now the new kind of, rather than shooting at him,
that's right.
This is our new policy. And they played, 24/7, really loud, heavy metal music.
That's right, yeah.
That's
absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. Well, he was flown to Miami, where he's put on trial for drug trafficking, racketeering and money laundering in 1992.
Yeah.
The court ruled his collaboration with US intelligence agencies to be inadmissible as evidence.
Right.
Because clearly the CIA had been sort of...
they'd been pumping him for information for years, hadn't they?
He was sentenced to 40 years imprisonment, but he later got it reduced to 30 years and ordered him to pay $44 million to the Panamanian government that he'd stolen. Noriega was the first head of a foreign government to be sentenced in the US court and became, at the time, America's only official prisoner of war.
Actually, I remember the trial now that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
In 92. So did he go to prison in America then?
He was sent to Miami's Federal Correctional Institution, where his prisoner of war status entitled him to 3 rooms dubbed the Presidential Suite.
Oh, yeah.
He had a television, a telephone, exercise equipment. He turned to religion. He converted to Buddhism in the 1970s,
Blimey.
but later became a born-again Christian. He read books on philosophy and called old friends, but never gave interviews. He completed his sentence in 2007.
Right.
I didn't realise this.
No.
He got time off for good behaviour, but he did not walk free. France demanded his extradition for using laundered drug money to buy luxury property in Paris.
Right.
Excuse me. It cut no ice that he had been given the Légion d'honneur,
right.
France's highest military award, in 1987 for allowing French nuclear components to be shipped through the Panama Canal.
Right.
He was flown to France in 2010 and sentenced to another 7 years in jail. He was getting it left, right and centre. But it's always the case. These South American dictators, or dictators sometimes in African countries, the West adopt them, they flatter them, they send them hundreds of millions of pounds, and then when it all goes wrong, they charge them with being corrupt.
And then they always kind of throw their hands up in despair. Going, I didn't know he was corrupt.
That's
really?
Right.
He's the head of the Panamanian government.
Yeah.
I'm afraid, as much as it might sound like a bit of a stereotypical way to look at it,
exactly.
What did you think he was going to do with all the money?
Exactly.
You know?
So anyway, Noriega had also been sentenced to 20 years in prison for multiple murders committed in Panama, had he gone back there. And in 2011, aged 77 and in a wheelchair, he was extradited from France to his homeland. By that time, Panama had been transformed by a long economic boom. Most Panamanians had little memory or interest in their country's former dictator. So in January 2017, that's just earlier this year, he was released to prepare for surgery on a brain tumour. He suffered a hemorrhage during the operation and died. So that's it.
Oh, right. So what age was he?
77.
77, yeah. I mean, he was a massively kind of influential figure.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. He was 83 when he died.
83, okay.
83, yeah.
He was massively influential, and I'd forgotten that. As I say, completely forgotten about him until you mentioned him.
Wasn't he responsible as well for all those all those American 5-star generals losing their jobs because of arms for sanctions
arms
deal
for Iraq and all that. I think there was some connections through Panama with old Oliver. You remember Oliver North?
Yeah, that's the guy I'm thinking about. Oliver North,
and his lawyer,
and that was all Honduras, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Honduras, and also the Sandinistas.
That's right,
in El Salvador.
Yeah.
I am not a pot plant. Was his lawyer's name term, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah,
and he was like, I'm not just sitting here for my own health.
No, absolutely.
Fascinating stuff. Now, there's a story I've spotted in the papers as well, which all happened at the French Open yesterday, because Andy Murray won yesterday, which was good. Djokovic seems to be doing all right as well. But there's an amazing story about some French tennis player called Maxime Hamou.
Well, he's a sort of trainee tennis player. He's not even established.
Well, he's been banished from the French Open.
I'm not surprised.
For trying to kiss an interviewer.
Yes.
In a rather sort of
this young lady
way.
came up with a microphone, started talking to him. He put his arm around her shoulder, and then as she was asking the question, he was planting kisses on her cheeks.
Right.
It was remarkable.
And she said, if it hadn't been live on air, I would have punched him.
Yeah, that's right.
It was very unpleasant.
Absolutely, yeah.
But he's not in any way sort of contrite about it. Because he's basically said, he said, I want to offer my deepest apologies to Mally Thomas, who's the woman in question, if she felt hurt or shocked by my attitude during the interview.
Yeah.
I just lived a wonderful week here in Roland Garros.
Yes.
I let my overflow of enthusiasm express myself awkwardly towards Mally, who I know and sincerely respect.
Yeah.
But he also said he would quite happily offer her an apology in private.
Yeah.
So he's not really taking his medicine.
He's not. I totally agree. Now, listen, I want to talk to you about Cornwall, okay?
Cornwall?
Yeah, Cornwall.
All right.
Now...
are you heading down there this summer?
Well, I don't know, maybe. I haven't quite decided yet. But the point is, right, that because of... Well, maybe not people like you and me, because we don't have holiday homes in Cornwall, but a lot of people from London do. I mean, for instance... Don't what's the name and Judy have a place down there?
Richard and Judy, I think so.
Because I remember seeing them talking. They used to have this lovely arrangement where when they'd finished work on a Friday, because they had a TV show in the mornings, right? They'd get on the Rattler down to Cornwall. Beautiful trip.
What, you mean just go down there for the night and come back up?
No, for the weekend.
Oh, for the weekend.
Because they worked again on Monday,
yes.
So they'd get on the train, get in the first class, but they'd spend most of the time in the restaurant car.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was rather nice to have your dinner on the way down.
Yes.
And probably not even leave the restaurant car for the whole of the trip, which is 3 or 4
Well, I mean,
hours.
if you're lucky to find a restaurant car nowadays.
Well, I was about to say, this is in the days when there were restaurant cars.
Because I used to use a restaurant car coming up from Wiltshire years and years ago.
Yes.
Myself and our mutual friend.
Yes.
Coming up from Pewsey.
I know.
And that was a train that went all the way down sort of Castle Howard that way.
That's right.
And I think it ended up in Exeter.
Yes, that's right.
But the restaurant car was brilliant because you could get in it even though it was first class if you only had a second class ticket.
Yeah.
Have breakfast, toast. They would try and kick you out.
And you could drink as well.
Well, this was breakfast, though. This is when I was going up in the morning.
Yeah, but you still have drink on breakfast.
Well, I didn't want to drink at breakfast time. I was going to work.
Oh, you're going to work, yeah. Sorry, but you could anyway if you wanted to.
I know that this is your life, where you get on a train and drink.
But anyway, the point I'm making is, with Judy and Richard, the way I read it was, they loved this leisurely trip down to Cornwall. Yeah. They had a long lunch, they enjoyed
I'm sure they would.
Like everybody who's entitled to. They enjoyed a social drink, and that was...
I used to see her in the Oxo Tower quite a bit.
Well, she used to work in offices 2 doors away from here. But anyway, the point of the story is that they had a holiday home. Now, that's fine by me. I got more than one property, and I think people should be
You're okay with people having holiday homes?
Of course I am.
Well, why wouldn't you be?
No, exactly. You shouldn't go around burning people's homes just because they're holiday home and all that kind of stuff.
Burning them?
Well, they did in Wales for
the
time.
Briefly.
These terrorists, yeah. But anyway, so what's happened is that, the massive investment that's been pumped into Cornwall from people who don't live there, like St Ives, has changed so dramatically from when I first went there with my girlfriend 40 years ago nearly, you know what I mean? When we were teenagers, and you can't even rent a place in St Ives now. It's so expensive, so to speak.
No. I bet you if you were to try and find a hotel room even there for some time in August, you wouldn't be able to get one.
You wouldn't be able to get one.
Right now.
But anyway, what this has done is, it's meant that the new community of people have emerged in Cornwall who are now living in abandoned boats on the seashore.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, not boats on locks or canals or that float.
Well, just like up on bricks or something.
Yeah, I mean, on their side. Left turned on their side. Right. And they're living in these broken down boats, living in
someone
sheds.
will find a way of taxing them for that, I'm sure.
They're living in old, dilapidated caravans. Yeah. And this is because they've literally been forced out of property and have nowhere else to go. And they're an underclass now in Cornwall, and this is all getting terribly worrying.
I bet.
Some locals are forced to live in abandoned boats. They patch them as best as they can to stop them leaking and stop damp, but it is a very sorry situation. Now, how has this been allowed to happen, I ask myself, eh?
Well, because this is what they tried to stop happening, that presumably effectively people have had to sell up because for one reason or another, or maybe these are people who were renting properties.
Yes.
And the people who they were renting
run
from,
out or something.
No, maybe the people who they're renting from have sold the properties because now somebody from London wants to move in and they can't move away.
That's right.
For one reason or another.
Yeah, that's right. And the tin mines.
I don't know what you do about that. Really.
Well, I think you've got to do something about it because otherwise you're creating this terrible underclass, And these poor people are local Cornwallians, if you see what I mean.
Cornwallians?
Yeah, they should be.
You've previously slagged them off, though, haven't you?
No.
Cornwallians.
No, I wouldn't.
You said they were a bit of a sort of a nuisance factor.
Yeah, let me give you these figures here. There are 29,000 second homes in Cornwall.
Right.
A county where 19,000 people are on the waiting list for social housing.
Right.
The average Cornish house price is $242,000, which is 9 times the average local annual salary of $24,000. A 3-bedroom flat, a basic 3-bedroom flat, averages £800 a month.
Really?
It's
like London prices.
Yeah, for residential, but the landlord can make £1,600 a week letting it out at the height of the holiday season.
I bet that's true.
So that's what they prefer to do.
That's shocking. Absolutely shocking. This is Talk Sport.
Yeah.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
Freedom for sport.
Can we kick it? Yes, we can. Talk Sport.
As your TV reviewer, I can reveal there are no plans for a new series.
Yeah, no, but wasn't there a previous series?
Oh, hang on, wait a minute. It says here there might be a new series. What's your problem?
That music can only mean one thing. It is, of course, time for Porkyvision. It's our weekly look at what's been going on the television.
Indeed.
What you should be watching, what you shouldn't be watching. Porky's just been in receipt of a whole new load of very, very expensive equipment.
That's right.
So I'm assuming that you're going to be very high-tech this week.
Well, very high-tech, and there's a lot going on. But, I do have a moral compass, a very serious moral compass.
So you say.
And, of course, I was
It's not always in evidence, though.
Sorry?
It's not always in evidence.
I was a boy born, in post-war Britain and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't believe that, sexual shenanigans went on in the 50s, okay?
Right. Yes.
And I've been quite shocked by some historical programmes I've been watching lately, which actually don't prove this at all.
Are they sort of glamorised, sexing it up, if you like?
Well, no, let me explain to you, right? An awful lot of programmes these days, I learned this, of course, in my role as TV critic.
Yes.
Are, for some unknown reason, centred on the 50s and the 60s. So I'm talking about Heartbeat, Grantchester, right? You know, with the big tall guy with the copperhead hair.
Eh?
You know the guy I'm talking about?
Well, Robson Green.
No. He's in Grantchester. Oh, yeah, he's in Grantchester, but the vicar, Sydney, is that guy who's forging forward as a prominent actor.
Tim Thingy?
No, it's not Tim. You know the guy I'm talking about. He was in Happy Valley.
No.
And he was in War and Peace.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
See, I don't watch any of this stuff. You're the TV critic.
Yeah, right. But also Inspector George Gently.
Oh, yeah.
The last but one episode of that I watched, right? That was a 90-minute special.
Yes.
And that, again, is based in the 50s, right? 50s stroke 60s, right?
What's the fascination with that, do you think?
I don't know. But
why do they keep making shows about it?
They keep making shows about 50s stroke 60s, and they keep finding these old Ford Corsair cars.
Yeah.
And old ambulances and old police cars, you know, the Ford Panda, remember that one, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But now, what's really concerning me is that an awful lot of Rogerisation is included in these programmes.
Right. Which must be deliberate, because they must know...
Freshman. But the one that most has shocked me this week is an old edition of Heartbeat.
Okay.
Because what happens is, you see, it opens with, a normal sort of scene in
sort of rural Yorkshire, wasn't it?
Yeah, rural Yorkshire. I'm trying to think the name of the town now. Ainsley.
Fictional town?
Yeah, Ainsdale or something it's called, yeah.
Okay.
And what happens is, it's a normal suburban scene where this chap comes to the door, and he's got his hat on and his briefcase and kisses his wife goodbye and then walks across the pavement and gets into his little, sort of...
Morris Minor or something.
Yeah, Morris Minor, and drives off. And all the time... just across the junction on the other side of the road is a black Ford Poplar van with the name of the local TV dealer and repairer on it.
Okay.
And he's grinning and smiling as he sees the husband drive away. Yeah.
I can wait for what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. And then when she's sure the husband's gone away, she sort of gives him the secret look.
Yeah.
And she's still got her sort of... her dressing gown and negligee on.
Oh, yeah.
And then she goes back into the house.
House
coat, that's a good word. And then she goes back in the house, and then, a few minutes later, and he's got his bag of tools, his bag of spanners,
sure
he's got his bag all these tools, and she opens the door and goes in. And then it's quite clear that a period of Rogerisation...
Has he got one of those detector things on top of his van?
No, he hasn't actually, no.
Okay.
That comes a bit later.
Right.
And then a period of intense Rogerisation obviously takes place.
Right.
Now, I didn't believe that the moral compass was that far distorted.
Well, you say
in
that.
In the 60s, the late 50s,
I
early 60s.
I think there was plenty of it going on. I think it was started during the war, actually.
This clearly was going on. And, of course, this woman is cheating on her husband, in a way. And the thing that amazes me...
And is she a youngish woman, then? Is she?
Well, she's very attractive,
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say. You're tempted.
You would be tempted,
well,
is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Well,
and
join a queue, I think.
But what I find amazing is that when, the deed has been done upstairs, he comes down, he's rearranged his clothing.
Yeah.
And just as he's about
Still got the tools.
He's still got his tool case. But just as he's about to leave, she says, "Oh, Billy, the television."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right,
So he actually has to fix it.
Well, he's got to make out that he's fixing it,
Right.
but the way that the programme then unfolds is that this couple's telly breaks down twice a week.
Yeah, well,
But it breaks down deliberately because she pulls the thing out the back, the cord, and then says to her husband, "Oh, the telly's gone again. Oh, you better call the TV repairman." Well, the TV repairman is coming around and Rogerising his wife twice a week.
Well, he's not aware of this, is he?
Well, he doesn't seem to have picked up on it. So that's that's something that I find a little hard to take. Anyway,
and when was this episode originally aired? Then is it a repeat of some kind?
A few years ago.
Really?
A few years ago, but they're still
Amazingly,
very popular.
you could find it.
But they're still very popular on things like Dave and all that kind of stuff. You know. Anyway, a programme made very recently, because it's a new series of Grantchester, but again, going back to 1950s Cambridgeshire, Grantchester, which is in fact the real name of the town where Lord Archer, the eminent author, lives, right? He's the most prominent local resident.
All right.
So I suppose Rogerisation and,
Jeffrey.
I suppose, fact and fiction at some stage have sort of merged, if you see what I mean,
right.
Because obviously he was a very popular man during his lifetime, and still alive, of course.
Well, he is still alive, yeah. So you might say that... I wouldn't call him popular.
Well, popular with certain
he was popular
groups of
for his Krug and Shepherd's Pie parties, wasn't
he? He was, but that was at his place in London.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's no secret because the court cases took place and he ended up in jail, I'm afraid.
That's right.
That he did have associations with ladies.
Yes, he certainly did.
And that his wife, who was an eminent doctor, Mary, was a very fragrant woman.
Fragrant.
As said by a judge. But anyway, so what happens in Grantchester is, old Sydney, I'm talking about, the actor played...
The one that we can't remember.
Yeah, but everybody knows what I'm talking about if they've seen it. He suddenly decided that his Rogerisation desires...
Is he not married? He's not married, is he?
Well, I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
Overcome his love of God. So he goes to see the Dean.
Right. But that's all right if you're a vicar, though, isn't it? He's not like a Catholic.
Not in 1950s, and
really?
I'll tell you why.
But they're not married in then.
No, hang on.
Blimey.
No, you're not listening. The subject of his devotion and his infatuation and his lust, right, is a woman who is married.
Oh, I see.
But separated from her husband and trying to arrange a divorce, which the husband is making difficult.
Is it James Norton, by the way?
James Norton is the guy I'm talking about. He's Sydney, right?
Yeah.
So old, for the first time ever on sort of British television, you've got a 1950s vicar whose whole motivation in life is being led by what's in his trousers.
That's
if
not
you see
good.
What I mean?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
That isn't good.
And he goes to see the Dean.
Pleasures of the flesh.
Pleasures of the flesh. That's right. And he goes to see the Dean, and he says, "Well, the subject is I love her," and the Dean says, "But, you love God." He said, "Yeah, I do, but I love her more than I love God." Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's not supposed to succumb to the pleasures of the flesh.
No, of course he's not. Of course he's not.
It's supposed to be taboo.
Yeah, verboten. Exactly. Exactly. Well, no. The vicars can have it away, no problem at all.
But not with somebody else's wife.
Oh, well, exactly. Not with somebody else's wife, not with the married woman, all that kind of stuff. And she's got a child as well. So, the Dean says, "You better write a letter to the bishop then, and you have to resign." Right, OK, I will. So then old Sydney, James Norton, goes to tell his girlfriend, as she is, "I've done it, and we're going to resign, we're going to set up home ourselves and all that." Now,
terribly scandalous that would have been, wouldn't it?
Absolutely scandalous in those days, absolutely scandalous. And by the way, her husband's already punched Sydney in the face in a previous episode. Yeah, because he thought he was spending too much time with his wife,
Does he think he's done the deed with her? If that's not too
delicate I think he suspects.
Does he?
Yeah,
and has he or not?
Well, we don't really know, but I mean, we have to suspect. Now, while all this is going on, is it Robson Green?
Robson Green, yeah.
Who is the blundering police?
He gets everything wrong.
Gets everything wrong.
Yeah.
He is meanwhile sleeping now in his office in the police station because he's been Rogerising the secretary in the police station.
Oh, right.
A very flirty and attractive woman, okay?
And is she married?
She's not married, but his wife has kicked him out of the family house.
So she knows about that.
She knows about it. He's sleeping on a camp
bed
in the
they've
office.
got any time for any work.
So am I. I mean, there's so much going on. And while all that's going on, Inspector George Gently, which is another police series set in the 1950s, is, quite a complicated plot about an historic murder which needed to be solved, but involving the unveiling of lots of Rogerisation activity going on within that community, which is a small town in County Durham.
Shocking.
And there was plenty of it going on in those days, but it was all behind twitching curtains and closed doors.
Yeah, quite.
Which I thought I should let people know.
No, I think you've done very well to alert them to
exactly.
stay away from all these shows about the 50s unless you're prepared to be shocked.
Exactly.
Excellent stuff.
Yeah.
That was Porkyvision.
Indeed.
More coming up next week. This is TalkSport.
Yes.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
Back
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. That was Porkyvision. Speaking of which, I think you told me the other day that pole dart's coming back next week, didn't you?
Yeah, Monday night.
So there'll be
Sunday night,
more Cornwallian stories.
Yeah.
Well, they still have that guy riding up and down the cliff.
Oh, definitely. That's Poldark himself. And Des Melder, his beautiful bride.
Yes.
She got upset when he went off and Rogerised a member of the aristocracy, but he said he had to do it for the sake of family honour, to keep her from sort of going away or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not good. Now, I've got a question for you. Do you remember seeing the most expensive Rolls-Royce ever built? A story came out a couple of days ago. I think I tweeted it, actually.
Yeah.
But it was last Saturday. Rolls-Royce unveiled a one-off custom build called the Swept Tail.
Right.
It's a reported price of nearly $13 million.
13.
Yeah. Believed to be the most expensive new car ever commissioned.
And who was it built for?
It's going to be, I think it's going to be given to somebody in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It's the result of 4 years' work. The customer approached the company in 2013 and asked for it to be built as a one-of-a-kind motor car.
Wow.
Inspired by the luxury yachts of the 20s and 30s. It doesn't say who, in fact, is going to end up with it.
Well, it'll be the Emir of somewhere, won't it?
It will.
Probably, yeah.
But it's basically it's based on the current generation Phantom platform.
Right.
So it's going to have a 6.75-litre V12 engine.
Yes.
Right. And it's just going to be the most luxurious car that's ever been built. That's what it's going to look like there.
It's fantastic.
Have you seen sort of
Let's have a look.
The back window is kind of very very differently shaped.
Golly.
But the front of it is the normal kind of it's kind of more like a Mercedes, really, isn't it?
It's got very much the Lady Penelope frontage of a modern day Rolls Royce.
It's got that,
Yeah, it is a beautiful car.
But imagine that, 30 million. Apparently, according to the piece I saw, it's not as priced as the most expensive car of all time, which is a Ferrari 250 GTO, which is $38 million.
I think
That's
some
crazy,
of these,
isn't it?
Well, some of these cars, classic. You're talking about classic sports cars now, as go for auction. They attract huge sums.
But imagine trying to park that anywhere.
Well,
a car worth $13 million, or $38 million.
Well, $38 million car you wouldn't take out. That'd be in a museum.
I suppose so.
That would be,
well, if the guy lives in one of the Emirates, he probably drives around in it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Chris Evans, our colleague from the BBC, he has a collection, I think, of classic Ferraris. On his estate down in Surrey or whatever. And I remember one time he was writing a column in something, and he and his family and, all members who could drive took his fleet of Ferraris down to the local pub.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember seeing the picture.
And they all had a bit of lunch there and all that kind of stuff. And crikey, I'd have had my heart in my mouth because, taking one classic car out for a spin has its difficulties and its anxieties, but take the whole fleet is a very brave thing to do indeed.
Be very upsetting, yeah. Harry says all this new equipment, and Porky spends 10 minutes talking about an old Heartbeat episode.
Well, I had to. I mean, I had to. There's a moral compass which has to be addressed, and I had to talk to you about it,
And Tracy says the Grantchester dude James Norton is quite popular at the moment. He turns up in a new film, Hampstead, with Diane Keaton and Brendan Gleeson.
Oh, is that like a Notting Hill type?
It might be. If it's about Hampstead, I might have to check that out.
Well, there's a great new series coming out, which I've seen, called Riviera, and that's coming soon. I think it's a Sky special. And this is the one, have we talked about this on air, where you get every episode on June the 15th and you watch it all the way through?
Well, House of Cards, for example, the new one has started, right? So I think I'm right in saying that you'll be able to get all of those.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
it'll be the same probably with Riviera.
Yes.
Riviera is the one we talked about because it was kind of put together originally by the ex-U2 manager.
Yes.
The guy who decided to make a TV show.
Yes, I remember. Yes,
and it stars the woman who was in Julia Stiles, I think her name is, who was in the Bourne films.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
I rather like actually.
Very good. Now, listen, I want to tell you something about an amazing man called Sir Ronald Hobson.
Oh yeah.
Now, do you remember when we worked at the Daily Express on Blackfriars Bridge, just around the corner from here?
The new one, the new building.
The new one. One place we found to park the car cheaply, if you didn't have a slot in the company car park, was on Coyne Street.
Yes.
And Coyne Street...
Yes, because it was like a sort of wasteland, wasn't it?
It was a bomb site. It was literally a bomb site between two streets. One of them was Stamford Street, and I don't know what the parallel street was, but in between, which is now all built up into offices and...
I haven't been down there for a while,
Well, it is. I mean, it doesn't exist anymore, but it used to be a bomb site. It was a post-Second World War bomb site.
Yes.
And if we parked our car there for about £3 a day, you could keep the car there all day. The surface was uneven because it was a bomb site. So you were driving over the remains of houses that had been bombed during the Second World War.
Right.
over the foundations and that kind of stuff. So you had to be a bit careful, you know what I mean, with your wheels.
There were some quite big holes.
Yeah, big holes and that kind of stuff. But that's why it was so cheap, because it wasn't a multi-storey car park.
Yeah.
Now, it was owned by NCP, right? And Sir Ronald Hobson, who has just died, was the co-founder of NCP. Now, I thought the guy who made NCP was Sir Donald Gosling, who I've known about for years because he had a yacht.
He liked his yachts, didn't he?
He liked his yachts and all that kind of stuff. But in fact, it was a business partnership between Sir Donald Gosling and Sir Ronald Hobson. And I'd just love the stories of how, you know, great companies are founded from nothing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So just listen to this. Ronald Hobson, newly demobbed from the army and with an eye for money-making ventures, came across a site in central London that had been flattened by the Luftwaffe. One day in October 1948, thinking that the spot in Red Lion Square near Holborn, which we know very well.
We do.
Yeah. This is obviously in central London.
Right.
Might have potential as a car park. He put his head through the inquiry hatch at Westminster City Council, the neighbouring borough, and asked to see the person who dealt with such matters. The person who dealt with such matters was a Donald Gosling, a board trainee surveyor who was kicking his heels after leaving the Navy. And although he was not the man responsible for that particular inquiry, he was in the same office and he knew how to navigate the highways and byways of planning consent.
Right.
A few days later, they got together over a meal, and shortly afterwards, their car parking company was born. The pair, styled as joint chairmen, invested £100 each, charging motorists 1 shilling and 6pence a day to park in one of the 120 spaces.
Everybody was just in one place off Holborn. That's
off Holborn, yeah. All their friends told them they were mad. Traffic levels in post-war London were very light, and there was free parking available on every street. Who would pay to park a car? Ron and Don, as they were known, were as alike as Crane and Chutney, i.e., you know, they weren't alike.
Yeah.
Although in matters of business, they acted as one. They occupied an office in Bryanston Street, close to Marble Arch. Right. So anyway, what happens is in 1958, they founded the National Car Parks Company, bought it over, and used the company as a vehicle for expansion. They then went on to create breakdown companies like Green Flag. Anyway, getting to it. So they started with £100 each, one bombed-out site in Holborn. By 1994, Hobson and Gosling controlled more than 650 car parks around Great Britain. An estimated 70% of the total private car parking sector available.
They owned them all, really, didn't they?
They owned them all.
Yeah.
They sold up in 1998 to the American property and travel services firm Cendant, Cendant, for £801 million, of which Hobson and Gosling and their family trusts, which owned 72.5% of NCP, took £580 million. This is in 1994.
Not a bad payday.
I mean, I just love the way that these guys, from nothing, start giant companies like that. I just think it's fantastic. I wish I'd done that myself.
I know. Imagine if you had that kind of money, though.
Yes,
You'd probably be dead now, wouldn't you?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
You probably would have, done something to you. You would have gone on some kind of massive jamboree.
Yeah, probably.
And you would have ruined yourself.
Yeah, maybe.
So maybe you should thank yourself, or think yourself lucky.
Maybe.
That it didn't happen.
Maybe.
How about this from Squirrels, who lives in Jacksonville?
Yes.
It's very interesting what you were saying about Noriega. My dad helped take him down.
Really?
And I now have a painting from his office in my bedroom.
Really?
Yeah.
Good gracious.
His old man must have been in the Marines or something.
The US Marines or something like that, yeah, because they invaded, didn't they, and took him out of his palace, actually. Okay, very interesting. Now,
interesting.
I think we need to recap with our listeners exactly what our working pattern is next week.
Do we?
It's quite interesting, isn't it?
Well, it is interesting, but it's only Wednesday.
It's only we've only got one more night, you see.
That's true.
We've only got one more night.
Yeah.
And after tomorrow night, folks, you will see us on daytime on Friday, where we will be starting at 10 a.m., not 10 p.m., 10 a.m.
Indeed.
Working till 1.
Yeah.
We'll then be on the warm-up on Saturday, which is back to its regular 11 to 2 slot here in the studio.
11 to 2, I think, yes.
We're not going to be doing it Sunday, but on Monday...
Yeah. You get a day off on Sunday.
We get a day off on Sunday.
Yeah.
But on Monday, we work 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
That's right.
But then we go home. We come back for that evening's late show.
Yeah.
Because on Tuesday, TalkSport are...
They're carrying the ICC cricket, aren't
covering, it's a special broadcast of the ICC live commentary cricket.
Yeah.
So you won't see us on Tuesday, but we will be back on Wednesday daytime as well. And then we're mostly on daytime then for the rest of June.
Don't forget,
looking forward to it very much.
You've forgotten about the election special.
The election special, now that comes on Thursday the 8th, right?
What happens people are taking this down?
No, but they're riveted and fascinated by what I'm telling them. On Thursday, we do the normal daytime show while people are going out and voting. Yes. That's 10 till 1.
That's right. Well, we won't be able to mention the election.
We won't be able to mention the election.
Because you can't mention the election while it's on.
Don't mention the election!
Yeah, I mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it.
That's right. And then we come back, and then we go home, and then we come back that evening to start again about midnight, is it?
Well, I'm not sure of the exact starting time. I'm hoping it'll be midnight.
Midnight,
but, I mean, it'll be certainly midnight before we have any kind of indication.
Yes, that's well. You'll get an exit poll because if you remember, in the last general election 2 years ago, the exit poll actually stunned everybody and changed the course of the whole night's proceedings.
But nobody believed it.
Nobody believed it.
But that didn't come in till about 11ish, I think.
The election. I thought it was about 20 past 10. I thought it was very quickly after the polls closed.
Well, the polls usually open till about 10 or 10:30.
No, 10. They all close at 10, and you get the exit poll about 20 past. But anyway, look, point of my story is we'll be back to overnight on Thursday through to Friday morning. Yeah. But then, folks, the added bonus is it's not all over for the week. We then go away and have some breakfast, right, at about 6 o'clock.
Have you arranged that yet?
I'm taking you to Savoy.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And maybe a glass of champers.
Yeah.
Just to celebrate the night's events. We won't know who's won, of course. So so that will be just us celebrating our
we might
achievements.
do, though. We might know.
Might do, yeah. Sorry, of course we will. We will know.
It might have been declared by that time.
What I'm saying now is I don't know now what we'll be celebrating or who will have won, but we will by then know who have won.
Yeah.
And then, again, we will be back at 10 a.m. to forge through another 3 hours till 1 p.m.
I'm glad you cleared that all up for everybody.
That's okay.
They'll be taking notes. Now, what about your mate Liam Gallagher? You were talking about him last night.
Yeah, was he performing tonight?
He played an hour-long show last night at the O2 Ritz. Which will be similar to the O2 in Liverpool.
Yeah, what a boy.
Which we played. Yeah. He played Oasis classics such as Morning Glory
Yeah.
and Rock and Roll Star.
Really?
As well as his new music. 3,000 people were there, and he told them all, "We are together." One fan said that was the best gig I've been to in a long time.
Yeah.
It was very emotional and very, very amazing. So he looks in good shape. And apparently it's gone down very well.
And was there a charge to get in?
I'm sure there was, because I think he was giving the proceeds to the Manchester bombing.
So say a crowd of 3,000?
3,000, yeah.
And I reckon there would have been a charge of about 20 quid, so that would have raised 60,000 quid.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Let's say he gives 50,000 of that to charity. I think he's done well.
I think he'll give it all to charity. I think he said it was a free concert.
Well,
I mean, some expenses, I suppose.
Yeah, but it can't be a free concert in the sense that, he's putting people to pay for it. Otherwise, he hasn't got any money to give them, has he?
No, exactly. That's right.
So I presume he would have charged a fee.
No, I said about £20 a ticket, probably,
But then he would presumably take some expenses out of it as well.
Well, he'd have to. I mean, the theatre would want something, wouldn't they? So, yeah. No, that's very good. Good. I'm very pleased. And
so
he's done
maybe
a good
you could
job.
send him a congratulatory note.
I will send him a congratulatory note because I think he's done very well there. That's good.
It certainly seems to have pleased the people of Manchester.
Well, it would be pleasing, wouldn't it? Because they've been through a terrible time, and your heart goes out to them. So a bit of light relief from Liam Gallagher would have been very welcome, I'm sure.
Absolutely right. Now this show's nearly over. Tomorrow,
is, what
are we doing tomorrow? Are we doing a bit of Postman Pork, maybe?
Postman Pork.
Heroes and Villains, perhaps?
No, I think we would do, what was it? Because we're doing the quiz on Friday.
Yeah. Yes. Quiz will be on Friday, which you could have mentioned in your roundup of all of that.
Yeah, well,
work
I'll tell you, it's a quiz.
It might confuse a few people.
Yes, that's right, quiz on Friday, no problem.
It's going to be on the Champions League, isn't it?
It's going to be on the Champions League.
Are you an expert on the Champions League?
I will be by Friday.
Really?
I mean, I've seen every Champions League final. I've been to 3 of them.
Have you?
So
I've only been to 1, I think.
Yeah, really. So I think I'll be able to help out there a bit.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we will talk about all of that coming up, and much, much more, of course.
Yeah.
We'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's in the morning. For those of you who are not confused by what Porky was telling you, this is Talk Sport.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the two mics. I remember once we got off a plane in Moscow, right, and I felt absolutely fine, and then we got into a people carrier and went to Red Square, and we went to the Metropole Hotel where we were staying, and as I got out of the people carrier, my back literally went, as I put my left foot onto the ground.
Does it just stiffen up?
No, it's like somebody just disconnects your spine from your what's this called? The pelvis. You see what I mean?
But what's the effect of that?
Well, it wobbles in the middle and you lose power of your legs.
So you kind of just fall over?
Yeah, that's right. Well,
fall over?
Well, this is exactly what happened in Red Square. So
Presumably you were accused of being bladderated.
I was.
Yeah.
I was accused by a Red Square, army guard of disrespecting Mother Russia by arriving there in a state of vodka-induced bladderation.
Morally destitute.
That's right, flopping around on the floor. And I tried to point out to this guy that, where I come from, Britain, we don't, it's not a particularly pleasant hobby to be thrashing around in 3 inches of snow on the floor in Red Square.
Quite.
I'm doing it because my back's gone, old Idiofsky.
Did they have to call for a stretcher?
Well, I need assistance to get into the hotel. And I need lumber work on the lower back.
Shocking.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
The pressure's on now.
Relieve the itch. Talk Sport.
Reciting the national anthem backwards is quite hard to do. I don't think I'd be able to do that if I was sober.
No, I don't think I would either.
God save our gracious Queen. How can you do that backwards?
God save our gracious
Can you even do that backwards? God save our gracious Queen. So you would go Queen, gracious.
Save God. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to do, isn't it?
It's quite